Chapter 161, Rewards from the Great Tao Journey. Chu Zan was overjoyed when he saw Hong Yuanchu agree. The circle of communication within the origin Tao crystal was finally about to expand. Furthermore, Hong Yuanchu would be able to verify his status as a big shot in the same realm as him. With that, as a big shot in the same realm as Hong Yuanchu, would it not be easy for him to trick other Tao realm experts into joining? Furthermore, after his divine soul journeyed through the great Tao, his strength would definitely soar. It would not be long before he broke through to the Tao realm. He raised his hand and took out a Tao aura ball from the origin Tao crystal, handing it over to Hong Yuanchu. As long as he injected his aura into this Tao aura ball, the origin Tao crystal would be able to use this Tao aura ball to record his Tao aura. Hong Yuanchu put away the Tao aura ball. It was rare for him to meet someone of the same cultivation level, so he could not wait to discuss the Tao with him. Recently, he had encountered some hindrances while opening his Tao path, so he was unable to continue moving forward. He urgently needed to gain new insights and inspiration. Of course, he did not ask these questions right off the bat. It would make him seem too anxious, and he would be looked down upon by the other party. Taoist brother, where are you going? Chu Zan smiled and said, I'm taking a walk through the great Tao. It's been a long time since I've come to take a look. Then, he continued, the great Tao is invisible, but there's a scenery here that everyone wants to see. Take a walk and see more of it. You'll gain new insights. He could sense that this fellow, Hong Yuanchu, had encountered a bottleneck and wanted to discuss the Tao with him to gain inspiration. Taoist brother, you are right. Hong Yuanchu sighed. Ever since he started opening his Tao path, he had been obsessed with it. He had never really walked around inside the great Tao. Perhaps, if he walked around and took a look, he would gain new insights. He suddenly felt enlightened. I was too obsessed with opening the Tao path. My obsession caused me to fall into a rut. Hong Yuanchu sighed and said, back then, the 36 levels of the Tao realm were like 36 mountains. Each mountain was taller than the one before it. In order to climb them, I had to rack my brains and comprehend 100 different lives. Some might even have to reincarnate and cultivate for another lifetime. After going through many difficulties, I finally reached the peak of the mountain and stepped into the Taoyuan realm. Unfortunately, I became confused and fell into a rut. Fortunately, Taoist brother has enlightened me. Chu Zan listened silently. Based on Hong Yuanchu's lamentation, he learned some new information about the Tao realm. The Tao realm was divided into 36 levels, which were also compared to 36 mountains. Each level was a world of difference. Only after passing the 36 levels or, in other words, climbing the 36 mountains, could one step into the Taoyuan realm. More specific information was still needed for him to fully understand the Tao realm. Perhaps he would only understand the secrets of the 36 levels of the Tao realm after reaching it. Each level in the Tao realm is more difficult than the last, and opening the Tao path is 100 times more difficult. The great Tao is endless, and we still need to search for our own paths bitterly. Chu Zan also sighed with emotion. Yes, Hong Yuanchu agreed very much. We call the 36 levels of the Tao realm the 36 mountains, and each mountain is taller than the last. Each level is 100 times more difficult to break through than simply reaching the Tao realm. Looking back, Hong Yuanchu sighed with emotion. Back then, there were many people in the Tao realm, whether they were good friends, enemies, or even Tao partners. In the end, he was the only one who managed to step into the Taoyuan realm by relying on his great perseverance and great fortune. The rest of them struggled bitterly in the Tao realm and even perished. Chu Zan nodded and sighed as well. In reality, he did not feel any emotion at all. After all, it took him less than 10 years to cultivate from the mortal realm to the heaven realm. Furthermore, he became stronger by simply staying home. How could he possibly understand how difficult it was to cultivate? It was about time for them to say their goodbyes. Chu Zan was worried that his divine soul would suddenly return when the reward duration was up, which would trigger some doubts on Hong Yuanchu's side. Thus, he bade him goodbyes and left. Hong Yuanchu did not try to persuade him to stay. The doubts in his heart had already been answered. However, when he saw Chu Zan walking through the great Tao with a carefree look on his face, he was astonished. The other party was much stronger than he was. He was still unable to walk through the great Tao with such ease. Furthermore, he could not stay for too long. Only when Chu Zan's figure disappeared into the distance did he retract his gaze. Another Taoyuan will soon end. The great tribulation of Taoyuan will then descend upon us. There should be heavens blessed in the 9 zones who will obtain great fortune and fight for the next Daoyuan's great opportunities to become the next Daoyuan's law creators. Hong Yuanchu muttered to himself, how many Dao realm cultivators will be affected by the great tribulation of this Daoyuan and die? Who will be able to become law creators of the next Daoyuan? When he thought about this, he could not help but sigh. He had once opened a Dao path at the end of the previous Daoyuan and participated in the creation of the laws of the previous Daoyuan. The long years of the previous Daoyuan had already ended, and now this Daoyuan was reaching its end. If one did not enter the Daoyuan realm, they would not be able to escape the great Daoyuan tribulation. There was a risk of dying in the great tribulation. Chu Zan did not know about the great Daoyuan tribulation. However, when he learned that this Daoyuan was reaching its end, he had a premonition that something big would definitely happen. It was just like how a dynasty at its end would definitely descend into chaos, and the people there would suffer as they tried their best to survive the ensuing upheaval. After leaving Hong Yuanchu, Chu Zan continued to walk through the Great Tao, continuously comprehending the Great Tao. No method of comprehending the Great Tao would allow him to personally walk through the Great Tao, but this system reward did. This was a great opportunity. During this tour of the Great Tao, Chu Zan had obtained a huge harvest. The first thing he learned was the division of levels in the Tao realm, as well as above the Tao realm. It was also the final known realm of cultivation. After an unknown amount of time had passed, Chu Zan felt that the origin Tao crystal had already reached the critical point of the first stage of its transformation process. He stored it back into his divine soul. As he continued to walk through the Great Tao, he did not encounter a second pathfinder other than Hong Yuanchu. Suddenly, he felt a strong pulling force covering his divine soul. When he regained his senses, his divine soul had already returned to reality. In that instant, Chu Zan felt that his cultivation level had soared rapidly. From the 5th level of the heaven realm, it quickly rose to the 6th level, and showed no signs of stopping. The Tao aura and Tao principles wrapped themselves around his soul, and the indestructible chaos body also continuously absorbed the Tao aura. It was in the process of being upgraded. The origin Tao crystal was also emitting a hazy brilliance. Chu Zan placed the origin Tao crystal back into the pocket dimension. When the origin Tao crystal returned, the pocket dimension rumbled and began its own upgrade process. It was filled with the Tao aura, and its great Tao became more evident. The ordinary tree grew again. The other heavenly materials and earthly treasures grew as well, and many of them were filled with Tao aura. On the mountain where the ordinary tree was, many plants and animals had undergone further transformation. Tao aura filled the air, and the dense Tao intent was transformed into a Dao tree. The heavenly materials and earthly treasures on the mountain had all become Tao fruits. There was now a forest of Tao fruits here. As the pocket dimension upgraded, Buddha Nanwu started to break through to the divine realm under the influence of the Tao aura. Su Shaner, Shang Xing, and Chu Yun all obtained significant gains. Chu Zan was busy, so he waved his hand to absorb a strand of Tao aura and sent it into Chu Pingfan's body in the universe space. Boom! His body rumbled, and the indestructible chaos body became even stronger. His divine soul had completed its transformation. His cultivation level was still improving and, in the blink of an eye, he was already at the 8th level of the heaven realm. Chu Zan closed his eyes slightly as he examined his gains from this tour through the Great Tao, and the changes brought about by the increase in his cultivation level. Boom! 9th level of the heaven realm. The momentum did not stop there. At this moment, the spiritual power in his body began to transform. His domain power seemed to be fusing with the spiritual power in his body. He was making a breakthrough to the divine realm. Chapter 162, Breaking Through to the Divine Realm, Stable Tao Principle. The divine realm involved yet another transformation of spiritual power and divine soul. Chu Zan's divine soul had already transformed, and it was different from an ordinary divine realm cultivator's divine soul. Now, all that remained was the transformation of his spiritual power. The fusion of domain power and spiritual power, and his control over the laws of heaven and earth was further improved. Moreover, as a divine realm cultivator, he was granted the initial comprehension of Tao aura, and the ability to cultivate Tao aura. That being said, Chu Zan had already comprehended Tao aura long ago. He was different from other divine realm cultivators. He did not lack comprehension. He was only lacking in terms of cultivation level. The divine realm was no longer about grasping the power of one's domain, but grasping the power of heaven and earth, and controlling the power of the laws of heaven and earth. Like its namesake, it was like becoming the god of heaven and earth. That was the divine realm. Chuzon's spiritual power was being transformed into divine power. Rumble. The transformation of spiritual power was completed. Chuzon felt that he had broken through a bottleneck, and had stepped into a new world. He had succeeded in reaching the divine realm. After breaking through to the divine realm, the increase in his cultivation level did not stop. The gains he had gained from journeying through the great Tao with his divine soul were too great, and he could not completely digest all of it within a short period of time. Not only did the gains help him break through to the divine realm, but they also helped him take a big step toward the Tao realm. It was not an exaggeration to say that there were no more bottlenecks or barriers between the divine realm and the Tao realm. As long as he consolidated and solidified his cultivation foundation, he would be able to break through naturally. This was the true harvest he had gained by journeying through the great Tao with his divine soul. It was difficult to reach the Tao realm. Those who could cultivate to the Tao realm had all gone through various twists and turns, and had undergone long periods of tempering and comprehension. However, Chuzon had directly skipped this. If news of this were to spread out, countless Tao realm experts would cry until they had no tears left to cry. They would throw their heads back in grief and howl wildly, cursing the great Tao for being unfair. Boom. The second level of the divine realm. Divine realm cultivation was about transformation. Each breakthrough would result in a deeper comprehension of the great Tao. It involved the transformation and growth of one's divine power, and allowed the divine realm cultivator a greater control over the power of heaven and earth. Boom. The third level of the divine realm. After breaking through to the third level of the divine realm, the momentum of his consecutive breakthroughs gradually slowed to a halt. However, the gains from journeying through the great Tao had still not been completely digested. Chuzon let out a long breath. He had made an unexpected breakthrough to the divine realm so quickly. Clenching his fist, he felt a brand new strength welling up within his body. He felt that he was invincible in this world. However, he could not get ahead of himself. He had to consolidate his cultivation and continue to grow his strength. Chuzon kept reminding himself that, in the endless eons, and among the countless cultivators, he was only a shrimp in the wide ocean. Ignoring Daoyuan realm cultivations like Hong Yuanchu, even Tao realm cultivators were enough for him to look up to. The Tao realm was divided into 36 levels, with each level being greater and harder to achieve than the one before it. It was said that breaking through each level was more difficult than the breaking through from the heaven realm to the divine realm, and the gradient of improvement was greater. You have broken through to the divine realm and become the youngest divine realm cultivator in history. You have been rewarded with a box of divine origin pills and the stable Tao principle. The system's reward arrived as expected. The youngest person to reach the heaven realm in history was also the fastest person to reach the divine realm in history. Chuzon was feeling good about himself. He also wanted to be the youngest person to reach the Tao realm in history. I want to set a record and have all of the future cultivators look up to me. Chuzon had great ambition. The divine origin pill was the cultivation pill for divine realm cultivators. There was no need to examine it. Instead, he examined the stable Tao principle. Tao principles were a domain that only Tao realm cultivators could touch. Tao realm cultivators cultivated Tao principles, and used these Tao principles to create their own Taos. The system really understood me. The stable Tao principle was, as its name implied, very stable. Chuzon read through the description of the Tao principle. The stable Tao principle is stable, steadfast, and unyielding. After grasping the stable Tao principle, one would be as stable as a mountain and could not be moved. No attack could shake him. Of course, this was relative to one's strength. Simply put, the characteristic of the stable Tao principle centered around the word, stable. Chuzon received the Tao principle reward. Immediately, the stable Tao principle wrapped itself around his body as well as the chaos bell. It gave him a sense of stability. He was now as stable as a mountain and would not panic in the face of danger. It was true to its name. Chuzon was still unable to fully master this Tao principle, but he could constantly comprehend it and passively activate it. Moreover, the stable Tao principle would still continue to grow with his comprehension of it, eventually becoming the stable Great Tao. However, this required one to reach the Tao realm in order to continue to comprehend and grow it. Chuzon, who was in the divine realm, was unable to fulfill the requirements the Tao principle needed to grow. After breaking through, Chuzon took out a bottle of divine origin pills and poured them into his mouth. The indestructible chaos body quickly refined the medicinal pills, consolidating his divine realm cultivation foundation. He looked at the pocket dimension. The world inside the pocket dimension had now completed its upgrade. The mountainous region where the ordinary tree was had given birth to first-grade Tao fruits and heavenly material and earthly treasures. Chuzan waved his hand and turned this region into a forbidden area. Without his permission, no one could enter. Apart from the increased spiritual power, the pocket dimension was already suffused with an extremely weak Tao aura. Moreover, its size had expanded by more than 10 times. It had already surpassed the acreage of the northern zone. The pocket dimension had endless potential, and Chuzan was confident that as it continued to receive upgrades, the world inside would eventually become a world that surpassed the 9 zones. This huge harvest was a result of Mo Luantian's efforts. Oh, wait, he should now be called a demon Buddha. Chuzan was looking forward to what kind of rewards he would bring in the future. In the pocket dimension, Buddha Nanwu was still in the process of breaking through. Under normal circumstances, this would have taken him a few years, or even more than 10 years, to complete. This whole process had been accelerated by the addition of the Tao aura to the pocket dimension and its upgrade. When Chuzan saw this, he threw a bottle of divine origin pills over to Buddha Nanwu, which would help him break through even faster. Thank you, Buddha. Buddha Nanwu put his palms together and thanked him. He then thought of his unnamed disciple, Ren Chang, who was still in the process of breaking through to the divine realm. Now that he had divine origin pills, it was time to help him break through quickly. He took out the myriad heavenly mirror and connected it to Ren Chang. Greetings, Master. Ren Chang bowed respectfully. Chuzan took a quick look. Ren Chang was just a tiny step away from breaking through to the divine realm. Even without the help of the divine origin pills, he would definitely break through within 10 years. Chuzan waved his hand and sent over a bottle of divine origin pills. Chuzan was in a good mood now, so he was naturally more generous. After breaking through to the divine realm, it was time to show his generosity as a master. These divine origin pills can help you break through. You can also use them to cultivate once you reach the divine realm. Given Ren Changhei's current situation, one divine origin pill would be enough to help him break through. The remaining pills would help him increase his strength quickly. Thank you, Master. Ren Chang was extremely excited. He kneeled on the ground and kowtowed respectfully before receiving the pills. Chuzan contacted Qinying again. This was the first time he met Qinying in such a long time. The laws of heaven and earth in the southern region were recovering faster, but Qinying's current strength had yet to reach the peak of the Emperor Realm. Since he was pretty happy right now, he would give Qinying 2 bottles of Emperor Realm cultivation pills. In any case, Emperor Realm medicinal pills were no longer of any use to Chuzan. Greetings, Master. Qinying was very excited. He had finally met Chuzan again. Now that there was a chance, it was time to ask him how to turn back into a man. However, Chuzan did not give Qinying the chance to ask. He said, your cultivation is progressing somewhat slowly. I'll give you 2 bottles of medicinal pills. As he said that, he transferred the Emperor Realm cultivation pills over. Thank you, Master. Qinying was extremely excited. The pills that Chuzan had given were definitely not something that ordinary Emperor Realm pills could compare to. Chuzan did not wait for Qinying to continue speaking and abruptly deactivated the myriad heavenly mirror. Chapter 163, Great Tao Communication Group. After breaking through to the divine realm, Chuzan's confidence had increased greatly. Furthermore, he now had the stable Tao principle. As he continued to comprehend it, his cultivation speed would advance by leaps and bounds. It would not take him many years to break through to the Tao realm. It was time to fish out the true mastermind behind the Black Moon Tower. The heavenly Tao talisman plan should also be implemented quickly. Before the Asura ancient land opened, it had to cover the entire northern zone. Only then would he be able to spy on all of the forces in the northern zone and control their movements. Chuzan looked at the origin Tao crystal. The 2 soul puppets that were in the process of nurturing had completed their nurturing ahead of time because of the changes to the origin Tao crystal. They had gained sentience. With a wave of his hand, the 2 soul puppets flew over. They transformed into 2 servants, a man and a woman. They looked no different from actual human beings. However, if one were to examine them carefully, one would still be able to discover telltale signs that they were not actually human. Greetings, my lord. The soul puppet's consciousness, cultivation foundation, battle techniques, and so on were all nurtured by Chu Zan's divine soul. They were absolutely loyal to him, and he would not disobey him. Moreover, the spiritual intelligence of the soul puppets was relatively simple, and nowhere close to that of an actual human being. The two soul puppets both possessed the strength of a divine realm cultivator, and they were equivalent to ordinary second-level divine realm experts. Your name is Chu Yi, and your name is Chu Er. Chu Zan thought for a moment and gave the two soul puppets a name. The male was Chu Yi, and the female was Chu Er. Chu Yi greets the Lord. Chu Er greets the Lord. Go to the trial mystic realm. Chu Zan waved his hand and allowed the soul puppets to enter the trial mystic realm to increase their combat experience. After training in the trial mystic realm, the soul puppets' agility and adaptability in combat would increase. Training there would also further increase their battle awareness and their ability to deal with dangerous situations. There were two people in the Origin Dao Crystal group chat. One was a true big shot, an existence that surpassed the Dao realm, Hong Yuanchu. The other was Dao realm Ying Kong. Chu Zan did not know which level of the Dao realm Ying Kong was in, but judging from Ying Kong's performance, it should not be too high. Perhaps he could start with Ying Kong and learn more about Dao Yuan and Dao realm through him. He would test him using the identity of a senior. First, he would introduce primordial chaos and let Ying Kong know that there was a big shot in the circle of communication that he looked up to. And he had a higher status than this big shot. With that, he could easily fool Ying Kong. In the Origin Dao Crystal, they could send messages, just like a group chat. Chu Zan said first, Ying Kong, let me introduce you to fellow Taoist Hong Yuanchu. Fellow Taoist Hong has already persisted for 2 Dao Yuan and has opened 2 Dao paths. Ying Kong was already aware that there was an additional person in this mysterious circle of communication, but he did not dare to greet the other party first. He was waiting for Chu Zan to introduce him. Hong Yuanchu. This name sounded somewhat familiar. Ying Kong's expression suddenly changed, and he muttered to himself, Hong Yuanchu. Could it be that legendary existence? He has been around for 2 Dao Yuan, and has opened 2 Dao paths, who else could it be other than him? Dao Yuan realm, the legendary Dao Yuan realm. This was a super big shot. Even many Dao realm experts worship this existence. Ying Kong greets Senior Hong. Ying Kong said respectfully. In order to show his respect, he even used his Dao aura to condense a human figure, which prostrated itself on the ground. This image was transmitted through the Origin Dao Crystal. Chu Zan took a look and, once he saw that Ying Kong was behaving so respectfully, he knew that the other party had heard of Hong Yuanchu's great name. Young friend Ying, thank you for your greetings. Thank you for your introduction, Taoist brother Chu, Hong Yuanchu replied. Ying Kong, he had never heard of him before. He should be a nobody. Still, no matter what the reason was, Ying Kong was able to enter a group formed by Chu Zan's great Dao treasure, which was considered a fortuitous encounter. He could be considered a fated person, so his cultivation level was not too important. When one's strength reached Hong Yuanchu's realm, only fate mattered, not cultivation level. Ying Kong's heart thumped. This was not good. The mighty and virtuous Senior Chu was actually a Dao seeker too. Even Senior Hong Yuanchu had to treat him with respect. He recalled that he did not seem to be as respectful to him as he had been to Senior Hong Yuanchu. In a panic, he condensed another human figure and bowed. He said, "Thank you, Senior Chu, for introducing Senior Hong to little Ying." He had to be humble. He had to be respectful. This was a super big shot. It was his greatest opportunity. You are too polite, little Ying. Ying Kong was really a tactful person. He had changed his own form of address to little Ying to indicate the other two members' seniority. Chu Zan felt that it was easier to trick Ying Kong. Little friend Ying, how is your cultivation? What level of the Dao realm are you at? Chu Zan asked. Ying Kong's heart skipped a beat and he started to panic. Could it be that he was not worthy of being here because his cultivation level was too low? Should he lie? On second thought, lying in front of such a big shot would be akin to courting death. He was deeply worried and afraid of being expelled. Little Ying is stupid. I have cultivated for close to 1 Dao Yuan, but am only at the 3rd level of the Dao realm. The 3rd level of the Dao realm was indeed the one of the weakest among the 36 levels of the Dao realm. And Ying Kong had actually cultivated for close to 1 Dao Yuan. How many years was 1 Dao Yuan? Chu Zan did not know much about this, so he could only suppress his curiosity for now. He would wait for the right opportunity to seek answers and find out. Above average, not bad, Hong Yuanchu said. Then he said, Taoist brother Chu, how about I invite people to join us right now? Sure, Chu Zan was overjoyed. This big shot Hong Yuanchu was indeed well connected. Then, he said, our communication circle uses the Great Tao as a medium, so why don't we call it the Great Tao Communication Group? Great Tao Communication Group. That's perfect, Hong Yuanchu agreed. Soon, a few different Tao auras were absorbed by the origin Tao crystal. Then, Hong Yuanchu began to introduce the newcomers. This is fellow Taoist Kunhe. He has opened one Tao path and has been around for one Tao Yuan. This is fellow Taoist Ruo Xian. He has opened one Tao path and has been around for nearly 2 Tao Yuan. He's from the same generation as me. Apart from these 2 Tao Yuan realm cultivators, there were also a few Tao realm cultivators. Xu Yang, 30th level of the Tao realm. He was a close friend of Hong Yuanchu. Piao Ruian, Hong Yuanchu's disciple, 29th level of the Tao realm. Wu Fengkun, Hong Yuanchu's disciple, 28th level of the Tao realm. Shizan, Ruo Xian's Tao realm disciple, 26th level of the Tao realm. Among these, Ruoxian, Piao Ruian, and Shizan were all women. Ying Kong was so scared that he did not dare to speak. Within this great Tao communication group, he was the most trashy. Chu Zan exchanged greetings with the 2 Tao Yuan realm cultivators, while Hong Yuanchu and Ruoxian's disciples bowed to him respectfully. After getting familiar with each other, Chu Zan made an excuse to leave the group chat. He was afraid that if he chatted too much, he might stumble upon an intellectual blind spot, or be asked a difficult question and would not know how to answer. Therefore, at this stage, he tried his best to remain silent. He was waiting for his strength to increase. Furthermore, he was very curious as to where these Tao realm experts, as well as experts above the Tao realm were. Of the 9 zones, apart from the desolate ancient domain, the other 8 would not contain Tao realm experts. Were they beyond the 9 zones? Chu Zan was more inclined to that notion. After Ying Kong's initial fear subsided, he realized that this was a great opportunity to build relationships with many experts and resolve the doubts he had about his cultivation. Therefore, after a day of silence, Ying Kong began to curry favor with the people in the group. The 3 Tao Yuan realm experts did not speak much, so he did not dare to carelessly bother them. Therefore, his target was Piao Ruian and the others. After chatting and getting to know each other, Ying Kong had some gains. Some of his cultivation problems had been solved. He became even more grateful to Chu Zan, this mighty, immortal, holy, and most virtuous senior, for pulling him into the group. Chapter 164, Good Luck Charm. Chu Zan entered a period of bitter cultivation, constantly comprehending the stable Tao principles, and his strength increased rapidly. However, he still needed some time to accumulate a sturdy cultivation foundation before he could break through to the Tao realm. His comprehension was sufficient, but his accumulation was not enough. Every day, as per usual, he took out the Tao-seeking mirror and searched for Tao realm experts or supreme treasures or treasured lands related to the Great Tao. Everyone in the Great Tao communication group was familiar with each other, so it was not very interesting there. If one wanted to create an active chat group, they would need to bring people from all over, Tao realm experts from the different races. Only then would it be interesting. Chu Zan sighed. As the group leader, he had gone through a lot of trouble to put together this group chat. Under the nurturing of the Tao auras of the 3 Tao Yuan realm experts and the many Tao realm experts, the transformation of the origin Tao crystal was accelerating. When it was further upgraded, it would be able to develop even more functions. For example, he might be able to use the origin Tao crystal as a medium to send items through the Great Tao. Chu Zan even had a bold idea. With the origin Tao crystal as the foundation and the pocket dimension as the starting point, he would be able to open up a new Great Tao. It would be on par with the Great Tao of today. If his plan succeeded, he would definitely be able to surpass the Tao Yuan realm in the future. Half a month later, Chu Zan was cultivating when the system's reward suddenly arrived. Your disciple, Ding Yu, has obtained the recognition of the spirit of an earth vein. It has recognized him as its master. His cultivation level has soared, and his fate has been transformed. You have been rewarded with a good luck charm. Oh, Chu Zan was stunned. Ding Yu had gotten the spirit of the earth vein to recognize him as its master, and his fate had been transformed. He took out the heaven-spying mirror and connected it to Ding Yu's mark. He discovered that Ding Yu had already left the ancient Forbidden Realm and was somewhere in the southern region that bordered the other regions. In front of him, there was a small figure that was only 1 foot tall. That was the spirit of the earth vein. Are you a man or a woman? Ding Yu stared at the spirit of the earth vein and asked. The spirit of the earth vein looked annoyed and said, I don't have a gender. If you want me to be a man, then I'll be a man. If you want me to be a woman, then I'll be a woman. Let me think about it. Ding Yu frowned and muttered, if it's a woman and follows me, how can I have no woman in my heart and draw my sword to kill gods? However, if I am resistant to it being a woman, it means that my sword heart is not perfect and I can't reach the realm of having no woman in my heart. Thinking this, Ding Yu lowered his head and asked, can you be a man sometimes and a woman sometimes? Or, when I want you to be a man, you'll be a man, and when I want you to be a woman, you'll be a woman. The spirit of the earth vein. Is he a lunatic? What kind of weird request was this? It's over. My master is a lunatic. The spirit of the earth vein was on the verge of a mental breakdown. I'll continue to be genderless. That works too. Ding Yu agreed. He grabbed the spirit of the earth vein, placed it on his shoulder, and continued to move forward. Chu Zan shook his head. Ding Yu was hopeless. He deactivated the heaven spying mirror and received the system reward. Good luck charm. It allows you to change your luck and can control your luck. As expected of a system product, the path of luck was extremely mysterious. It was hard to grasp, but it was real. If one had good luck, one could change one's fate. Controlling one's fate was definitely a treasure. Of course, if one wanted to change one's fate and control one's fate, even if one had good luck, one still needed to be strong enough. The weaker one was, the weaker one's fate would be. The stronger one was, the stronger one's fate would be. Chu Zan continued to cultivate. At the same time, Shangxing was also working on the communication talisman for the Heavenly Dao plan, and making steady progress. For the time being, the Black Moon Tower did not have any higher-ranked tower lords coming over. They were restricted by the major forces of the other regions. However, the cross-region communication talismans had already been sold to the other regions. The major forces had all bought them. Chu Zan now had a good grasp of the information flow and plans of these major forces. For example, a certain major force planned to ambush another certain force, etc. As the sales of the communication talismans increased, and it was confirmed that the information would not be leaked, it became a must-have item for any Northern Zone faction and expert. Especially for those who went on expeditions as a team, each of them would be equipped with a communication talisman. Nowadays, communication talismans were sought after. They were too popular. Shangxing had also given a few methods of refining communication talismans to the Black Moon Tower. Some of the spies planted in the Black Moon Tower by some of the major forces had already secretly obtained one or two methods of refining communication talismans. They felt that only those who refined their own communication talismans were truly safe. Chu Zan understood the thoughts of these major forces very well. They were all afraid that the communication talismans would have some sort of backdoor system and that the transmitted information would be stolen. However, they did not know that even if they personally refined the communication talismans, they would still be unable to escape the control of the Heavenly Dao Talisman. The first stage of the deployment of the Heavenly Dao Talisman plan in the Northern Zone was complete. Once people got used to using something, they would become dependent on it. The appearance of communication talismans made communication in the Northern Zone convenient. Moreover, the information transmitted was safe, so there was no need to worry about their messengers being intercepted halfway like before. More importantly, the information was transmitted in real time. There was no time wasted. Gradually, all sorts of missions and orders would be issued through the communication talisman. This was especially true when situations changed and the missions needed to be changed. Therefore, the actions of the various large factions and organizations would be no secret from Chu Zan. This was the crux of the Heavenly Dao Talisman plan. Everything would be under the control of the Heavenly Dao Talisman, from which he could access any and all information he wanted or needed. Obtaining information was only the first stage of the Heavenly Dao Talisman plan. The plan would progress further when the Heavenly Dao Talisman was further upgraded. The Heavenly Dao Talisman would first cover the Northern Zone, then the other 7 zones, and finally the entire 9 zones. Chu Zan would occasionally learn some information about the Asura ancient land from the Heavenly Dao Talisman. Other than that, he did not pay much attention to the rest of the information being passed around. The Heavenly Dao Talisman plan had just started, so he could not interfere too much. Otherwise, its secret would be exposed and be discovered. Currently, Shangxing was in charge of the communication talisman portion of the Heavenly Dao Talisman plan. Chu Zan felt that it was necessary to increase the number of people. They would be responsible for the operation of the Heavenly Tao Talisman and the tracking of information. The soul puppets were a very good choice. Su Shan'er would occasionally handle information, but that information was limited to documents and reports sent over by the Black Moon Tower. She had yet to come into contact with the Heavenly Tao Talisman. The impact of the Heavenly Tao Talisman plan was too great. Other than Chu Zan himself, no one else could know about it. Fiddling around with the good luck charm, Chu Zan suddenly had an idea. Su Shan'er hailed from the Central Region, but she was not the one who carried the fate of the Central Region. Could he use the good luck charm to change Su Shan'er's fate and make her the daughter of the fate of the Central Region? If he was successful, among the 5 regions of the Northern Zone, only the fated son of the Eastern Region would not belong to him. Xiao Liang could be considered his disciple, although he did not have a master. Chu Zan decided to give it a try. He activated the good luck charm, and a hazy light appeared. The mysterious charm floated out and landed on Su Shan'er. Chu Zan controlled the good luck charm. He wanted to strengthen Su Shan'er's fate and transform her into the fated daughter of the Central Region. All of a sudden, he felt his divine power being consumed at a crazy rate. His divine soul power was also being consumed at the same rate. His power was being drained at a pace that was not much slower than when he used the Tao-seeking mirror. Chu Zan was secretly shocked. Changing the bearer of fate of a region was too difficult. In the end, Chu Zan gave up. He could not afford to expend any more divine power and soul power. The difficulty was probably increased because the Central Region was the strongest region in the Northern Zone. Chapter 165, Fate-Suppressing Tao Cauldron. Although his efforts did not make Su Shan'er the daughter of the fate of the Central Region, it did change her fate for the stronger. Su Shan'er was originally a person with great fate. Otherwise, she would not have been led to the small courtyard by the lucky mystic realm. Putting away the good luck charm, Chu Zan began to recover his divine power. He was curious. Who was the son of the fate of the Central Region? An absurd thought appeared in his mind. Could it be Su Shan'er's fiancé? Su Shan'er escaped from the Central Region because of him. The reason was that the man she was forced to marry was ugly, had a bad personality, and a bad reputation. Are there ugly B***stars among the sons of fate? Chu Zan fell into a state of deep thought. Whether it was Ding Yu, Wang Luo, or Xiao Liang, none of them were ugly. Sure, Shangxing had briefly been a skeleton monster. He was born with fire bones. However, after he recovered, his appearance was not ugly. Could it be that Su Shan'er's fiancé was not really ugly? If it really is him, then things will be interesting. Chu Zan laughed in his heart. Given Su Shan'er's cultivation speed and the foundation she had, she was not at all inferior to a child of fate. Moreover, she was his maidservant, so how could she lose to the child of fate of the Central Region? Chu Zan continued to cultivate. Every day, he would find time to use the Tao-seeking mirror to search for Tao realm experts. After all, there were too few people in the Great Tao Communication Group. Moreover, most of them were acquaintances of Hong Yuanchu. Ying Kong was the only stranger. He was also the small fry in the group. He was the one with the weakest cultivation strength. Ying Kong probably did not even dare to take a deep breath while he was chatting in the group. 3 days later, Chu Zan was using the Tao-seeking mirror to search for Tao realm experts. Suddenly, the system's reward arrived. Your disciple, Wang Luo, acted pretentiously in the pill refinement competition of the Northern Region, stomping on the reputation of his enemies and shaking the Northern Region, improving his fate and confidence. You have been rewarded with the fate-suppressing Tao Cauldron. The Northern Region's pill refinement competition had finally come to an end. Wang Luo had successfully shown off and stomped on the reputation of his enemies. Had he risen to power? Chu Zan put down the Tao-seeking mirror and took out the heaven-spying mirror. He connected it to Wang Luo's mark. In the image projection, Wang Luo was standing on the pill refining stage. He was holding a heavenly pill in his hand. With his Emperor Realm cultivation base, how could he not shock the Northern Region when he refined a heavenly pill? There were many experts gathered around the pill refining stage. They were all the top experts of the Northern Region's major forces. Among them, there was someone with a dark and ugly expression. Many experts threw mocking gazes at him. That person was definitely an expert of the Wang family. Wang Luo's act of showing off had indeed damaged the Wang family's reputation. Their prestige had been stomped on and their faces had been rubbed into the dirt. Patriarch Wang, Wang Luo, have no relationship with the Wang family. You don't have the right to order me around. Right, little friend Wang is right. Your Wang family has already expelled him, so he's no longer a member of your Wang family. An elder chuckled. Right, right, little friend Wang is no longer a member of the Wang family. The other experts agreed. Patriarch Wang was so angry that his aura surged forth, and he looked like he wanted to kill someone. Patriarch Wang, this isn't the territory of your Wang family. A middle-aged man on the pill refining stage exuded a fierce aura as he locked onto Patriarch Wang. The rules of the Northern Region's pill refining competition cannot be infringed upon. An expert from one of the pill refining sects in the Northern Region also spoke up in a solemn voice. Patriarch Wang's heart trembled as several auras locked onto him. If he dared to make a move, these people would definitely not show mercy in order to rope in Wang Luo. He was filled with regret. Wang Luo's talent for alchemy was actually so shocking. Emperor Realm cultivation, successfully refining a heavenly pill. What kind of terrifying talent was this? With his alchemy skill, countless experts who were stuck at the peak of the Supreme Realm would beg him for assistance. Even Heaven Realm experts would treat him as a distinguished guest. Moreover, it was almost certain that he would face no problems in breaking through to the Heaven Realm. The Wang family had suffered a grievous loss. Moreover, after this incident, the Wang family would become the laughingstock of the Northern Region, or even the entire Northern Zone. He knew that as long as Wang Luo remained alive, the Wang family would never be able to rise again. As long as one was not a fool, the experts of the various large forces would know who to choose between Wang Luo and the Wang family. This child must die. The killing intent in Patriarch Wang's heart surged. He had made up his mind to find an opportunity to get rid of Wang Luo, this great scourge. Chu Zan did not continue to watch. It was no surprise that the Wang family would try to make a move. Wang Luo naturally knew, and so did the other powers. They would even encourage the Wang family to do so. When Wang Luo was in danger, they would intervene to save him. This way, they would be able to rope in Wang Luo. Any faction that obtained a pill Dao genius like Wang Luo would rapidly rise in strength. For some experts who had been stuck at a bottleneck for a long time, this would be their best chance to befriend Wang Luo. They needed some pills to increase their chances of breaking through. After deactivating the Heaven Spying Mirror, Chu Zan chose to receive the system reward. The Dao Cauldron appeared in his hand. It was a small cauldron condensed from the Great Dao. The fate-suppressing Dao Cauldron. The Great Dao is intertwined. It can refine pills, refine everything, and suppress fate. It was a powerful fate-suppressing treasure. It could be considered a timely find. Now, Chu Zan had two fate-changing treasures in his hands. One was to change fate, and the other was to suppress fate. Chu Zan became even more determined. As expected, children of fate needed to be allowed to roam freely in order for them to grow. Only then would it be easier for them to trigger the system rewards. Shang Xing's current strength was still low, and the Heavenly Dao Talisman plan could not do without him. Otherwise, Chu Zan would have sent him out as well. He still had too few disciples. He had to find a few more disciples with great luck. Chu Zan was about to continue searching for Dao Realm experts when Su Shaner walked over with a strange expression. Sir, I don't know why, but I've been feeling a little uneasy these past 2 days. It's as if something is going to leave me. Chu Zan raised his head and looked over. Su Shaner was still incomparably beautiful and charming. There was a special aura about her. However, at this moment, there seemed to be something lingering around her that was affecting her. Chu Zan's eyes flickered with golden light. Heavenly golden divine eyes. Fate. Chu Zan realized that Su Shaner's fate had been affected by something unknown. It seemed like something was trying to weaken and steal her fate. What was going on? Chu Zan did not know much about the Tao of Fate. Fate was extremely mysterious. Even Dao Realm experts could not control it, nor could they probe too deeply into it. Unless they were experts in the Tao of Fate. However, the Tao of Fate was difficult to cultivate. For countless years, there had not been any experts in the Tao of Fate who were able to succeed. It was easy to get lost when one was cultivating the Tao of Fate. In order to strengthen fate, one had to constantly change fate and interfere with fate. It was easy to suffer the backlash from the heavens. This was also the reason why it was difficult to achieve great success in the Tao of Fate. Chu Zan frowned slightly. Was it because he changed Su Shaner's fate that she was seemingly suffering a backlash? No, that was not right. Changing fate as one wished was a path connected directly to the Great Tao. Even if there was a backlash, it should have affected him instead of her. Then, there was only one possibility. Someone was scheming against Su Shaner with the intention of snatching her fate. One had to know that Su Shaner was a person with great luck, and she possessed the Grand Moon Immortal physique. It was not easy to influence her fate. Who exactly was behind this and what methods did they use to influence Su Shaner? Chuzan could guess what methods the other party used to influence Su Shaner's fate. Chapter 166. Fate Backlash, Cute Little Tiger. It's just a small matter. Don't worry about it. Su Shaner's talent was extraordinary, and she possessed a great amount of fate. Even though she was affected to a certain extent, it was nearly impossible to snatch her fate. In the end, the other party's methods were too weak. The person was just using Su Shaner's blood relatives as a medium to interfere with and snatch her fate. Chuzan waved his hand, and a ball of dense light flew out from the fate-suppressing Dao cauldron and entered Su Shaner's body, suppressing her fate and blocking external interference. Then, he took out the good luck charm, and another ray of light rushed into Su Shaner's body. The other party actually intended to interfere with his maidservant's fate. This was blatant provocation. How could he not retaliate? Since the other party wanted to mess with fate, then Chuzan would make them suffer the backlash of fate. The good luck charm was a fate treasure, and it also had its own means of attack. After Chuzan finished, he said, "That should settle it." It was probably done by someone from the central region. Su Shaner felt an unprecedented sense of safety and stability. That uneasy feeling, as if she was about to lose something, no longer existed. Hearing this, her pretty face changed, and she gritted her teeth and said angrily, "Damn it. I've already escaped for so long, yet they still won't let me go. Was it the Su clan, or that ugly freak? ... They're both related." Chuzan asked curiously, "Which faction in the central region is that ugly freak from?" He had never bothered to ask in detail which faction Su Shaner's fiancé was from. He was originally the fiancé of the first daughter of the Su family, but because he was ugly, Su Shaner's sister used some tricks to have Su Shaner replace her as his marriage partner. The other party probably did not object because he saw Su Shaner's beauty. However, Su Shaner thought that he was ugly and ran away. "He's from the Great Qian Palace. Someone told me that he's the cousin of the Holy Son of the Great Qian Palace," Su Shaner said hatefully. Great Qian Palace. Chuzan immediately linked that name with the Great Qian dynasty. It seemed that the force behind the Great Qian dynasty was the Great Qian Palace. If this was the case, then the human divine realm expert who wanted to lure the demons into invading back then was from the Great Qian Palace. The Great Qian Palace was the #1 force in the central region. Alright, cultivate hard. Once you're strong enough, you can just crush the Great Qian Palace. Chuzan had a premonition that the Holy Son of the Great Qian Palace was most likely the son of fate of the central region. It's not that easy. It's rumored that the Great Qian Palace has a divine realm patriarch. Su Shaner felt that it was unrealistic for her to crush the Great Qian Palace. It's just a divine realm cultivator. It's not out of your reach, Chuzan smiled and said. "Sir, what's your cultivation realm?" Su Shaner asked curiously. From his tone, it seemed that he did not even care about the divine realm. Could it be that Sir had reached the divine realm? "It's not worth mentioning, not worth mentioning." Chuzan smiled and said. Su Shaner went back to continue cultivating. Far away in the central region, a young man with a collapsed nose, crooked mouth, and an asymmetrical pair of eyes suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. Following which, blood flowed out of his 7 orifices, and the ball in his hand exploded with a bang. The spiritual power in his entire body surged uncontrollably, as if it would explode at any moment. His mental will was also weakening. "Ah!" the ugly young man screamed. An old man appeared and stabilized his injuries, but his expression changed greatly. He had suffered a backlash. What was even more terrifying was that the fate treasure artifact had exploded. That was one of the Su family's supreme treasures. Although it was only a treasure artifact, it was a fate treasure artifact. Anything related to fate was a supreme treasure because it could suppress fate. "What's going on? Why did you suffer a backlash?" Patriarch Su also rushed over. His expression was extremely grave and ugly. The fate treasure had actually shattered. The Su clan had lost their fate suppression artifact. Without it, if they encountered a calamity, their losses would increase exponentially. "How would I know?" the ugly youth howled miserably. "I'll bring him back to the Great Qian Palace to treat his injuries." The old man picked up the ugly youth and left. At the end, he said, "Patriarch Su's daughter must have had an extraordinary opportunity." Patriarch Su had said with a gloomy face, "Our fate artifact has been destroyed. The Great Qian Palace must compensate us." Otherwise, the Su clan will reconsider our options. The old man paused. We will report this to the Holy Sun. After that, the old man left. Several elders of the Su family also rushed over. When they saw the broken fate artifact on the ground, their facial expressions all changed. Great, FC King great. The fate artifact is broken. One of the clan elders was so angry that his eyes were bloodshot. He said angrily, why did you lend them the fate artifact to snatch that girl's fate and force her to come back? How are you going to fix things now? Not only is the fate artifact broken, but your relationship with that girl has worsened. As the clan patriarch, you are becoming more and more incompetent. You even lost the clan's heirloom fate artifact. After that, the clan elder left angrily. Chuzan and Su Shaner were not aware of what had taken place in the Su clan's territory in the central region. However, Chuzan knew that those who had tried to interfere with Su Shaner's fate would definitely not have an easy time. Would the backlash of fate lead to repeated bad luck? They might even die because of it. Half a month had passed since the incident where Su Shaner's fate had been messed with. Finally, on this day, the Dao-seeking mirror found a new Dao realm expert. The white dot on the surface of the mirror gradually transformed into the shape of a tiger. Chuzan was stunned. This time, he had found a non-human Dao realm expert. A demon tiger. He moved a wisp of the tiger's Dao aura into the origin Dao crystal. Chuzan did not immediately give the other party access to the Great Dao communication group. Instead, he first contacted the other party to get to know it. Somewhere, far away on a mountain, there was a colorful tiger. Even though it was only lying there and had restrained its aura, one could still sense its fierce and domineering temperament. It looked majestic. However, when it raised its chubby head, it gave off a silly feeling. Roar. Suddenly, the tiger woke up from its sleep and let out a roar. Who is it? Hu Tai swept his eyes across his surroundings, revealing the full extent of his tiger might. His tiger claws were also exposed, gleaming with a cold light. Just now, someone had actually absorbed a wisp of its Dao aura. At this moment, he felt that his Dao aura had established a connection with something. However, no matter how hard he searched, he still could not find out where that thing was or what it was. He had encountered an expert. However, Hu Tai did not panic. He continued to lie on the ground, not getting up. I, Hu Tai, am just that brave. Little tiger. Suddenly, he received a message transmission, which appeared within the Dao aura. Hu Tai looked at the message transmission. When he saw what it said, he was so angry that he began to roar. I, Hu Tai, am the patriarch of the Heavenly Tiger tribe, a peerless overlord who has reached the 16th level of the Dao realm. Who are you? Why are you hiding from me? Show yourself. Haha, so you're the little tiger of the Heavenly Tiger tribe. Being able to join the Great Dao communication group is also an opportunity for you. Roar. Hu Tai slammed its claws on the ground angrily. How hateful. How dare you look down on me and call me a little tiger? Damn it. No one had dared to call him a little tiger for God knows how many years. Come out now. I'm going to tear you apart. What a violent little tiger, how honest and cute. FCK. Hu Tai roared, his paws continuously slammed the ground. His tiger eyes widened, and his killing intent was awe-inspiring. Chapter 167, Cowering and Acting Cute. Chuzan was not the least bit flustered by Hu Tai's threat. It seems that Hu Tai was the Heavenly Tiger tribe's ancestor, and an expert at the 16th level of the Dao realm. He observed a moment of silence for Ying Kong. He was afraid that Ying Kong might forever be the weakest member of the Great Dao communication group. Ignoring Hu Tai's roars, he added him into the Great Dao communication group. He immediately sent a message to announce Hu Tai's arrival. Hu Tai, from the demon race's Heavenly Tiger tribe, has been lucky enough to enter the Great Dao communication group. Let's get to know each other. He then introduced Hu Tai's cultivation realm. Ying Kong watched silently as tears welled up in his heart. A new group friend had arrived, but he was still the weakest. It was too sad. Hu Tai entered the Great Dao communication group and continued to roar. He even fired off insults. What Great Dao communication group? Who do you think you are? Why are you hiding yourselves? How dare you use the name Great Dao? If you have the guts, come out and I'll tear you apart. The corners of Chuzan's mouth twitched. This tiger was a hot-tempered fool. He hoped that he would not be beaten to death. He did not know where the Dao realm experts were hiding, but the others might be able to find Hu Tai, right? Hu Tai's 16th level Dao realm cultivation was the third from the bottom among the Great Dao communication group. The first from the bottom was undoubtedly Chuzan. He was not even in the Dao realm. Hu Tai, you little irritable tiger, haven't you been beaten to death yet? The first to speak was Piao Ruian, the eldest disciple of Hong Yuanchu. It was a woman. Judging from her tone, she seemed to know Hu Tai. Hu Tai was furious. His claws continued to pound on the mountaintop. As his claws continued to pound, the mountain became shorter and shorter. Someone actually called him Little Tiger again. It seemed like he had slept for too long. Everyone had forgotten how mighty he was. Roar, you're courting death. State your name. Lord Tiger will tear you apart. Yo, you little tiger, you're as irritable as ever. Piao Ruian was in a good mood and said, my name is Piao Ruian. Do you remember me? Piao Ruian, who was that? Her name looked a little familiar. Hu Tai was about to continue spitting insults when he suddenly quivered and stood up subconsciously. His claws stopped hitting the mountain. His pair of tiger eyes widened. Gulp, an ancient memory gradually appeared. A cold human woman held his tail and said with a smile, little tiger, don't be so fierce, or else I'll pull out your skin. Her tender white fingers poked its belly. Look at your silly and chubby appearance. It's very cute. He was scared. Hu Tai almost broke out in a cold sweat. It was actually that terrifying woman. I'm not Hu Tai. I'm from the Fox clan. I'm a little fox, not a little tiger. Hu Tai hurriedly changed his identity. Hu Tai, quickly tell me where you are. I'll go look for you. I don't know how many years it has been since I last saw you. I miss you a little, Piao Ruian continued. I'm not Hu Tai. You've mistaken me for a tiger. Hu Tai cowered and did not dare to roar anymore. Hong Yuanchu asked, is that the little tiger that you caught back then and raised as a pet? Yes, master. It's that silly, very irritable little tiger, Piao Ruian replied. Chuzan watched, and silently mourned for Hu Tai. Moreover, Hong Yuanchu and Piao Ruian did not seem to be in the same place. On second thought, it made sense. Piao Ruian was strong enough to leave her master's side. After all, it was impossible for them to stay together forever. Back then, when I looked at your little tiger, it was violent and silly, and it had great luck. To be able to enter Brother Chu's great Dao communication, as expected, its luck is very good. Hong Yuanchu sighed and did not speak again. Of course, it had a lot of luck. Were it not for the fact that it had a lot of luck, given its violent and simple character, it would have been beaten to death long ago. Piao Ruian was very happy. She kept asking in the group where Hu Tai was. Hu Tai was extremely flustered. Even the terrifying big boss was in the Great Dao Communication Group. The person who called him Little Tiger just now was in existence on the same level as that big boss. I'm so scared. Hu Tai felt that, at this moment, he had to change his tune. For him to be able to live until now and cultivate to the 16th level of the Dao realm, apart from good fortune and talent, knowing when to back down was also key. Thinking back, in order to survive, he had often acted cute. Senior, little tiger offended you just now. Please forgive me, senior. Furthermore, he had condensed his appearance with Dao essence, and his silly appearance was acting cute. Chuzan was speechless. Was this the ancestor of the heavenly tiger tribe? He was acting cute. When he was weak, he probably acted cute a lot. I won't take it up with a little tiger like you. Chuzan replied, and then remained silent. He had to play the role of a big shot properly. He would leave the juniors to chat in the Great Dao Communication Group. Piao Ruian was still asking about Hu Tai's location. Wu Fengkun and Shizan also joined in. Finally, Ying Kong carefully joined in the conversation. He was the trash of the group. Any one of them could easily crush him, so he was extra cautious and careful. He was afraid that if he said something wrong, someone would come looking for him and kill him. In the Great Dao Communication Group, he seemed to have returned to the time when he was weak. He was in a place where the strong surrounded him. He was in a precarious situation. Brother Hu, my name is Ying Kong. Hu Tai's eyes lit up. So he was not the weakest one here. There was still someone who was weaker than him. After the initial panic, he calmed down. Piao Ruian could not find his position through the Great Dao Communication Group. Therefore, he was safe. Alright, little brother Ying. In the future, Brother Hu will protect you. If you have any questions, feel free to look for Brother Hu. Hu Tai was very happy. The Great Dao Communication Group became more lively when Hu Tai joined. Hu Tai was not only irritable, he was simple-minded. At critical moments, he was very sincere and talkative. He was the one who spoke the most in the group. Perhaps it was because he was curious about the Great Dao Communication Group, or perhaps he had been bored for too long, so now that he had found something new, he was filled with interest. Chuzan had been paying attention to the information being discussed in the Great Tao communication. The 3 Daoyuan realm elders would occasionally say a few words. Whenever that happened, Hu Tai would act cute to curry favor with the big shots. After a few days of observation, Chuzan realized that Hu Tai had a violent personality and was extremely simple-minded. Even so, he had a very excellent specialty, which was that he knew when to back down and act cute. Perhaps it was precisely because he knew when to back down and act cute that he was able to live until now and become a Tao realm expert. As the number of Tao realm experts in the Great Tao communication group increased, and the frequency of their conversations increased, the Tao aura channeled into the origin Tao crystal also increased. The Tao aura that spread out from the origin Tao crystal into the pocket dimension became even more dense. After all, when chatting in the Great Tao communication group, one needed to manifest one's Tao aura, and use it to send messages. Chuzan kept up his efforts and continued to use the Tao seeking mirror to search for Tao realm experts every day. Over the course of a long period, he had discovered 2 Tao realm experts. One was Ying Kong, who was at the bottom of the group. The other was Hu Tai. Up until now, he had yet to find any treasures or treasured lands related to the Great Tao. Treasures or treasured lands related to the Great Tao were extremely rare in the 9 zones. Even if they existed, it was most likely in the desolate ancient zone. A month later, while Chuzan was using the Tao-seeking mirror to search for Tao realm experts, the system's reward suddenly arrived. Your disciple, Wang Luo, encountered a strong enemy and escaped into an ancient forbidden land in the northern region. He obtained an Emperor-level Fate artifact. You have been rewarded with a great Tao epiphany. Chapter 168, The Strange Tiger. Chuzan was stunned. Wang Luo was being hunted down. The power he had left behind for Wang Luo had not been activated, so his disciple should not have encountered a fatal crisis. Moreover, Wang Luo was very stubborn. Unless it was absolutely necessary, he would never rely on the life-saving means Chuzan had left behind for him. He had entered an ancient forbidden land in the northern region and had obtained an Emperor-level Fate artifact. As expected of a son of fate, he had indeed met with misfortune and turned it into luck. Chuzan did not check on Wang Luo's situation. To a son of fate, danger meant opportunity. It was not so easy for him to die. This time, the system's reward was an epiphany on the Tao of Fate. The Tao of Fate was unpredictable and mysterious. It was one of the most difficult Taos to cultivate and to comprehend. Chuzan was very excited. Undergoing an epiphany on the Tao of Fate meant that he would obtain enlightenment and insights into the Tao of Fate. He would be able to better use the good luck charm and the fate-suppressing Tao cauldron. He might even be able to fully unleash their power. He chose to receive the system reward. In an instant, Chuzan entered a mysterious trance-like state. It was as if he was on a journey through the great Tao again. This was the mysterious state of epiphany. What was fate? It was so mysterious that it was impossible to describe it accurately. After an unknown amount of time, Chuzan woke up from the state of epiphany. At this moment, he had gained an understanding of the mysteries of fate from the epiphany. Mysterious and dense spiritual energy surrounded his body. It seemed to be able to control everything. This was the Tao of Fate. Chuzan sighed. The Tao of Fate was too mysterious and powerful. If he cultivated the Tao of Fate, he would be able to avoid countless dangers. Wherever he was, there would be opportunities. If he encountered danger, he would suddenly gain the help of powerful people. There was no need to kill people personally. It was an extremely terrifying and mysterious Tao. Chuzan could only be considered to have entered the starting point of the Tao of Fate. He could not be considered to have reached the great success stage, nor could he be considered to be in control of the Tao of Fate. No wonder it was not easy for the children of fate to die. All of them would turn misfortune into luck, and they could easily obtain opportunities. There were only a few children of fate under him at this moment, and only 3 of them were out adventuring. The frequency of them triggering the system's rewards was not high enough. He had to take in a few more children of fate as disciples. Chuzan felt a little regretful. He should have taken in Xiaoliang as a disciple back then. He had been out exploring for a long time, so he would have encountered a lot of opportunities that probably would have triggered the system's rewards. Ding Yu had brought the spirit of the earth vein into the vast mountains. Hopefully he would discover something there and trigger another system reward. Chuzan took out the myriad heavenly mirror and injected his spiritual power into it, then began to connect the various zones at random. Recently, in order to search for Tao realm experts, he had been focusing on using the Tao-seeking mirror, so the frequency at which he used the myriad heavenly mirror had decreased. He had to increase the number of times he used it. What if it connected him to a child of fate? Whoosh! Waves appeared on the screen. Chuzan closed the myriad heavenly mirror connection and continued to inject his spiritual power into it. He had connected to the turbulent sea many times, but each time, he failed to gain anything. All he saw there was a sea with turbulent waves. Chuzan was not sure where the turbulent sea was in the 9 zones. Perhaps it was the sea that divided the regions. The second time, it connected to a valley. Other than a few small demonic beasts, there was nothing special here. Chuzan continued to connect the third time. This time, a different scene appeared. It was a bare hill. On the hill, there was a colorful tiger. The tiger on the hill was very similar to a Manchurian tiger from his previous life, but it was bigger. No matter how one looked at it, it was a big cat. Seeing the tiger, Chuzan could not help but think of Hu Tai in the Great Tao Communication Group, the ancestor of the Heavenly Tiger tribe, and how it would act cute. The tiger lying on the bare mountain narrowed its eyes. It was weak, as if it had encountered some kind of setback and had lost its will to fight. Was this a tiger that had chosen to give up on life? Chuzan realized that this tiger was not an ordinary demonic beast. From its eyes, one could sense its human-like intelligence. Demon race. The first thing Chuzan thought of was the demon race. It might be a demon with intelligence and the ability to transform. Most demonic beasts had a tiny sliver of the bloodline of the demon race. However, those could not be called members of the demon race. They could only be considered demonic beasts. This was because demonic beasts retained their innate bestial characteristics. They still behaved like beasts, so they belonged to the category of beasts. The demon race, on the other hand, had intelligence. They knew how to cultivate, refine weapons, and learn. Most importantly, they could transform into human form. This was the difference between the demon race and demonic beasts. The monster race was one of the 3 great races of the 9 zones. Their strength was no weaker than the demon race. Moreover, the monster race was born with the ability to control monster beasts. Every time there was a big battle, they would use monster beasts as their vanguard to weaken the enemy's strength. In history, the human, demon, and monster races had fought against each other many times. The tiger on this mountaintop was a member of the monster race. However, the other party did not take human form, but kept his beast form. Had the myriad heavenly mirror connected him to the monster race's zone? Chuzan could not help but think of Moluantian. The demon Buddha had given him generous system rewards. Since he had taken in a demon race disciple, it was not a big deal to take in a monster race one. Of course, the prerequisite was that this tiger had to be a child of fate. Heaven's Secret's origin probing technique. Chuzan immediately probed the origins of this tiger on the mountaintop. Hu Tianya, the former young master of the Heavenly Tiger tribe, the dominant race of the monster race. Due to his laziness and unwillingness to transform, he often maintained his beast form and was spurned. His bestial nature did not change and he was not educated. He took the position of young master of the Heavenly Tiger tribe, but then lost it. Due to the loss of his position as the Heavenly Tiger tribe's young master, his fiancée, the princess of the Azure Dragon tribe, parted ways with him. In grief and anger, he left the Heavenly Tiger tribe to wander. He is the fated son of the Heavenly Tiger tribe. Chuzan was stunned. He had met the fated son of the Heavenly Tiger tribe just like that. Hu Tai's tribe. Looking at the information detailed in the Heaven's Secret's origin probing technique, Chuzan was speechless. This Hu Tianya was a weirdo. How could a monster race member not transform? In the end, as the Heavenly Tiger tribe's young master, Hu Tianya liked his beast body and did not like to transform into a human. Because of this, he was angrily reprimanded. Others felt that he had not been enlightened. How was he different from a demonic beast? Was he not a disgrace to the Heavenly Tiger tribe? What was even more tragic was that he had been removed from his position as the young master of the Heavenly Tiger tribe. His fiancée from the Azure Dragon tribe had also parted ways with him. The reason for parting ways was not because he had lost his position as the young master of the Heavenly Tiger tribe. It was because he did not transform. According to the words of the Azure Dragon princess, she did not want her delicate beauty to be marred by a tiger that refused to change his form. She did not want to copulate with a tiger. She was even more unwilling to transform into her true form and do it that way. The scene of an Azure Dragon copulating with a tiger was too frightening and she could not accept it. She was a monster, not a demonic beast. Therefore, she parted ways with Hu Tianya. Hu Tianya left the heavenly tiger tribe dejectedly and ran off to this mountaintop to lie down. Chu Zan could not figure it out. Was there a hole in Hu Tianya's brain? He did not transform, but remained in his beast form all the time. Even his fiancée despised him, yet he did not know how to change himself. The moment Chu Zan envisioned the scene of an azure dragon entangled with a multicolored tiger. Not to mention the azure dragon princess, no one else could stand that scene. Who would be the top and who would be the bottom? How would they copulate? How could such a strange tiger be the fated son of the heavenly tiger tribe? Chu Zan could not understand why the Tao of Fate chose this tiger. Chapter 169, Acting Cute. Chu Zan hesitated. Should he take Hu Tianya as a disciple? This guy did not seem very serious. He was too weird. However, thinking of his identity as the son of fate of the heavenly tiger tribe, Chu Zan did not want to give up. After all, it was not easy to meet a son of fate. Hu Tianya looked ahead blankly. He only felt that the life of a tiger was meaningless, and he did not have the slightest desire to change. Right now, he only wanted to lie down, and no longer wanted to move. His position as the young master had been removed. His fiancée also despised him. He felt very wronged. What was wrong with him being in his true form? Why did he have to transform? However, when he thought of the Azure Dragon Princess, her slender and graceful waist, and her absolutely beautiful face. Sigh, it had nothing to do with him anymore. He no longer had the chance to kiss her. He felt his heart ache. Transform. He had thought of transforming, but a certain ancestor's inheritance that came from the depths of his bloodline made him choose not to transform. In the inheritance, it was stated that the heavenly tiger tribe could only remain safe and become strong if they maintained their tiger form. Once they met a strong enemy that they could not defeat, they could lower their heads and admit defeat. They could even turn their bodies around and reveal their fat bellies, displaying their harmless and cute side. In this way, even strong enemies would not be able to bear to kill him. The worst-case scenario would be that he would be captured as a pet. This move was especially effective against female powerhouses. The influence of his bloodline inheritance was too strong, and Hu Tianya could not free himself from it. He could not get past the mental block that kept him from transforming. Therefore, he always maintained his tiger form. Every time he looked in the mirror, Hu Tianya felt that he was silly, harmless, and very cute. Especially after shrinking his body size. Sigh. Hu Tianya sighed. The monster zone was so big, yet he did not know where to go. He could only lie down on this mountaintop. Suddenly, a circle of ripples appeared. Hu Tianya raised his head and looked over. A terrifying figure was sitting upright on a chair. That person's figure was shining brilliantly, and his might shook the sky. Hu Tianya did not know how far away this person was, nor what method he used to manifest his presence here. Hu Tianya's heart shook violently. He did not even need to think before immediately resorting to the skill that he had learned from his bloodline inheritance. Pa! He immediately flipped over, revealing his fat belly. He hugged his claws together, and his tiger eyes looked watery. He was simple and cute. Chu Zan, seeing Hu Tianya, who immediately admitted defeat and acted cute, like an obedient tiger, Chu Zan was dumbfounded. Are you such a king coward? I haven't spoken yet. I haven't threatened you yet. I haven't even revealed a trace of my aura yet. Why are you admitting defeat and acting cute already? For some reason, Chu Zan felt that Hu Tianya's actions were very familiar. Very familiar. Hu Tai. In the Great Tao Cultivation Group, every time the 3 Daoyuan realm cultivators spoke, Hu Tai would act like this. He would directly condense this cute form with his Tao aura. Had this Tiger King inherited Hu Tai's genes? Chu Zan even briefly suspected that Hu Tianya was Hu Tai's son. However, that was impossible. Hu Tai was an ancestor from countless generations ago in the heavenly tiger tribe. How could he have such a young son? Moreover, Hu Tai was not in the heavenly tiger tribe's territory. Chu Zan had a feeling that Hu Tianya's cowardly and cute posture was definitely inherited. Could it be that he had awakened his ancestor's bloodline? Had he obtained Hu Tai's inheritance? It was very likely. Little tiger, are you willing to become my disciple? Chu Zan had a slight headache. If he took Hu Tianya in as a disciple, this guy did not transform, so he was no different from a tiger. If he took him as a mount, no, he was too weak. Hu Tianya nodded crazily. Meow. He even let out a cute meow. Chu Zan was flustered. You're king tiger, not a cat. Speak. You're a tiger, not a cat. Chu Zan's face darkened. Master, Hu Tianya greets master. This guy was actually very smart, and he immediately acknowledged Chu Zan as his master. He had the same temperament as Hu Tai. You, transform now, Chu Zan said. Master, isn't it bad if I transform? In my bloodline inheritance, it states that I shouldn't casually transform, and that I should maintain my tiger form, Hu Tianya said hesitantly. Jackpot. It was definitely an inheritance from Hu Tai's bloodline. Its ancestor had admitted his cowardice and cutesy skills and had passed it on to him. No wonder he was the son of fate of the Heavenly Tiger tribe. His bloodline inheritance came from Hu Tai, who was the Heavenly Tiger tribe's ancestor, so it would be strange if he did not end up as the tribe's son of fate. Hu Tai was an expert at the 16th level of the Tao realm. In front of your master, you can relax and transform. Otherwise, you can only be a mount, not a disciple, Chu Zan said with a dark face. Yes, master, Hu Tianya nodded. The difference in status between a mount and a disciple was self-evident. Hu Tianya was not stupid. He naturally knew which to choose. His body swayed, and soon, a tiger-headed fellow appeared on the mountaintop. He was wearing colorful clothes. Looking at Hu Tianya's transformed form, Chu Zan's mouth twitched. It was really a tiger-like guy. He still retained his tiger-like head, but his body had transformed into human form. My strength is still low, so this is the extent of my transformation ability, Hu Tianya lowered his head and said. You'd better transform back into your beast form. Chu Zan was speechless. Hu Tianya's semi-human form was much uglier than his beast form. When he was in his beast form, he looked like a big cat. He looked simple and cute. Hu Tianya transformed back into his beast form and felt that the statement in the bloodline inheritance was accurate. You have taken the fated son of the Heavenly Tiger tribe as your disciple. You have been rewarded with the Jengjin White Tiger technique. As expected, the system's reward appeared. This was naturally the cultivation technique that suited Hu Tianya the most. Chu Zan looked at the description of the Jengjin White Tiger technique. Cultivating this technique could raise one's bloodline and transform one into a divine white tiger, which was good at killing and walk the path of the Jengjin Dao. Chu Zan had never read about the 4 divine beasts in any of the records of the 9 zones. He did not know whether they even existed. After all, Chu Zan's understanding of the 9 zones was actually very limited. Since you've become my disciple, and come from the Heavenly Tiger tribe, I'll teach you a technique that can further elevate your bloodline and make you a divine beast that surpasses your ancestors. Chu Zan used the Sage Master's halo to create a copy of the Jengjin White Tiger technique and transmitted it over to Hu Tianya. Thank you, Master. Hu Tianya was still as cute as ever. His claws were clasped together and his tail swayed back and forth like a dog. He took the cultivation technique booklet and happily flipped his body a few times and made a few cute gestures. Chu Zan was speechless. Through Hu Tianya, he seemed to see Hu Tai's past when he was still weak. He knew that Hu Tai used to be Piao Ruian's pet. He often acted cute and fond on her. Thanks to that, he received a lot of benefits and ate a lot of good things. The fact that Hu Tai had reached such a realm had a lot to do with the fact that he had been Piao Ruian's pet. Cultivate well. Yes, Master. Chu Zan deactivated the myriad heavenly mirror. He was in a good mood after finally taking in another disciple. He was looking forward to Hu Tianya bringing him rich rewards. That being said, Hu Tianya was only at the 3rd level of the truth realm at the moment. However, the cultivation speed of a child of fate could not be viewed with the lens of common sense. After obtaining the Jengjin White Tiger technique, his strength would increase by leaps and bounds. He believed that it would not be long before Hu Tianya broke through to the Emperor realm. Chapter 170, The Spy Behind the Scenes. After accepting Hu Tianya as his disciple, Chu Zan did not pay too much attention to him. He continued to focus his attention on searching for more Dao realm experts. There were fewer people chatting in the Great Dao communication group nowadays. The novelty had passed, and Piao Ruian and the others did not talk much. On the other hand, Hu Tai and Ying Kong got along very well. The latter tried his best to flatter the former, and the former tried his best to take care of the latter. Hu Tai enjoyed being flattered very much, and he seemed to be very pleased with himself. It was as if he had regained his dignity as the ancestor of the Heavenly Tiger tribe and a 16th level Dao realm expert. A month later, Chu Zan finally found another Dao realm expert. Looking at the image projection on the mirror, Chu Zan was momentarily stunned. Another monster. This time, it was a 9-tailed fox. At the mention of the nine-tailed fox, Chuzan could not help but think of the description of that legendary existence that bewitched all living things and was the most beautiful in the world. Was it the same for the nine-tailed fox of the nine zones? Chuzan felt a little regretful that the mirror was unable to display any information about the Dao realm experts it found. Otherwise, he would be able to tell from a glance just how strong the other party was and what he or she looked like. Currently, he still needed to communicate with the other party to understand the situation before pulling them into the group of Great Dao. As usual, he contacted the nine-tailed fox. Foxes were cautious, unlike Hu Tai, who was simple-minded and irritable. After some conversation, he got to know the other party. Ching Ching was a 17th level Dao realm nine-tailed fox, and one of the Fox clan's ancestors. Chuzan added Ching Ching into the Great Dao communication group and introduced her. Hu Tai, coquettish fox. Are you looking to die? Ching Ching was furious. Hu Tai and Ching Ching started quarreling in the group chat. Ying Kong looked at the newcomer in despair. Another Dao realm expert had joined, but he was still the weakest one here. Ching Ching's arrival caused the group to become lively again. Chuzan continued to stay mostly silent, and so did Hong Yuanshu and the other two, preserving their status as big shots. After a few days, the novelty passed, and Ching Ching spoke less. The most active ones there were still Hu Tai and Ying Kong. Chuzan continued to cultivate diligently, accumulating his own cultivation foundation and striving to break through to the Dao realm as soon as possible. Moreover, he would occasionally use his status as a big shot to check in on Ying Kong, and inquire about some things from him. A year passed. Chuzan did not find any more Dao realm experts. His cultivation increased by 2 levels to the 5th level of the Divine Realm. He continued to gain a deeper understanding of the stable Dao principle, and he could finally use some of the more basic powers of the stable Dao principle. Chuzan was a little disappointed, though, that Ding Yu, Wang Luo, and Demon Buddha did not trigger any further system rewards. It was worth mentioning that Chu Pingfan had already broken through to the 9th level of the Truth Realm. He was in the process of accumulating his cultivation foundation to break through to the Emperor Realm. Chuzan had high hopes for Chu Pingfan. While resources had played a role in his rapid advancement through the Truth Realm, his talent played an even bigger role. In addition, Chu Pingfan did not enter the pocket dimension, so he was not relying on the time flow difference there to cultivate. Chuzan was looking forward to his breakthrough to the Emperor Realm. The rewards would be plentiful then. Chu Yun had broken through to the 2nd level of the Emperor Realm, while Su Shaner was already at the 6th level of the Emperor Realm. Although she had stayed in the pocket dimension for a long time, she did not cultivate all the time in order to suppress her realm. Instead, she sorted out some information or learned how to refine pills, weapons, and array formations. Chuzan often gave Chu Yun some pointers on her pill refinement, and taught her some secret techniques. The Chu family had also developed rapidly in the past year. With the help of Chu Yun's medicinal pills, and the discovery of the Chu family's inheritance, their strength continued to increase. It was worth mentioning that the Chu family still maintained a close relationship with the Zhao and He families. Their relationship with the Qin family was somewhat distant because they were not part of the Great Qin dynasty's administration. Currently, the strongest person in the Chu family was an elder at the 9th level of the Truth Realm. There were more than 10 Unity Realm experts and 3 Truth Realm experts. Within the Great Qin dynasty, they were considered a very strong force. Within the southern region, they could be considered a mid-level force. Thanks to Chu Yun, no one came to disturb Chuzan anymore. It was as if they had forgotten about Chuzan's existence. Chu Tianming also no longer pushed him to return to the ancestral residence. Of course, this was probably because he was angered by Chuzan last time. In a year's time, the Heavenly Dao Talisman plan had progressed steadily. Using the Tower Lords of the Black Moon Tower, Chuzan took the initiative to attack. He had people carry wisps of his power and silently controlled many of the Black Moon Tower's higher-ups and experts. Currently, the highest status person in charge of the Black Moon Tower he had controlled was a 7-star Tower Lord. His cultivation was at the 6th level of the Supreme Realm. As a 7-star Tower Lord, his status in the Black Moon Tower was not low. Despite that, he still did not know anything about the mastermind behind the Black Moon Tower. Seeing this, Chuzan became more cautious. Perhaps the person behind the Black Moon Tower was a Divine Realm expert. The person in charge of the Black Moon Tower's south region was now Bao Hongyan. Chuzan had rewarded her for her ability to handle matters on his behalf. He allowed her to enter the pocket dimension to cultivate for a period of time, and helped her break through to the Emperor realm. At the same time, he taught her the secret aura concealing technique. Bao Hongyan had contributed a lot to the implementation of the Heavenly Tao Talisman plan, and her management and operational abilities were outstanding. Hence, she was favored by Chu Zan. Now, the entire northern zone had been infiltrated and Chu Zan had access to all sorts of information behind the scenes. Some of the methods used to create the communication talismans had been leaked. Despite this, it did not affect the sales of the Black Moon Tower's communication talismans. However, it made the various large factions feel more at ease using the communication talisman, as they were not worried about information being leaked through communication talismans they created themselves. As a result, Chu Zan was able to learn more and more secrets. For example, Chu Zan had also learned about the person who wanted to snatch Su Shan'er's fate through the Heavenly Tao Talisman. He was Su Shan'er's fiancé, and the cousin of the Holy Son of the Great Qian Palace. The Su clan had put in a lot of effort, and had even lent out their clan's fate artifact. However, in the end, it had shattered during the fate backlash. It could be said that they had suffered heavy losses. With that being the case, it was not surprising that they were able to influence Su Shan'er's fate, as they had used the Su clan's fate artifact. After all, Su Shan'er had the blood of the Su clan flowing within her, so the Su clan's fate artifact had a greater influence on her. All of this information was leaked by Patriarch Su when he used the communication talisman to contact an elder of the Great Qian Palace. The cousin of the Great Qian Palace's holy son had suffered a fate backlash, and he did not have a way to resolve it. His string of bad luck had never ceased since that day, and he was now half crippled. The holy son of the Great Qian Palace was extremely mysterious, and Chu Zan had yet to obtain any information about him. He had no idea what his name was, what his cultivation level was, or what he was doing. It seemed like he was in seclusion and had not used a communication talisman. The 3 sects and 2 empires of the southern region all communicated frequently with the forces behind them, discussing their plans for the Asura ancient land. The various forces of the northern zone also started to discuss the quotas for entry to the Asura ancient land. In order to determine the quota, they even decided to hold a competition. The young geniuses of the various forces would participate. They would be allocated additional or few entry slots based on their rankings in the competition. Of course, itinerant cultivators could also participate. After all, there were many itinerant cultivators, and there were also quite a number of strong ones. If they completely excluded the itinerant cultivators, it was likely that they would band together to cause trouble. Therefore, they allocated a certain number of spots to appease the strong ones among the itinerant cultivators. The competition was tentatively scheduled to be held in 10 years. Of course, they could not rule out the possibility of it happening earlier. Chu Zan decided to allow Wang Luo and Ding Yu to participate, and Shangxing would also participate. The competition involved cultivators from the entire northern zone, so the chances of triggering a system reward were very high. Chapter 171, Becoming More and More Stable. Chu Zan had full access to the information and plans of the various factions in the northern zone, and he knew quite a bit about their secret plans. For example, there was an evil commander in the evil imperial court who was actually a spy for the Great Qian dynasty. More accurately, he was a person from the Great Qian dynasty who cultivated evil techniques. Another example was an elder from the Nine Swords Mountain who was a spy for the Great Qian Palace. Another deacon from the Heavenly Cauldron Mountain was a spy from the Floating Flower Pavilion. All of the major factions had placed chess pieces and sent spies into their competitors' ranks. Even within the Great Qin dynasty, there was a high-ranking official who was a spy for the Great Qian dynasty. There was even an elder from the Qin royal family who was a traitor. Communication talismans were too convenient. As such, all of the spies used communication talismans to communicate, as it greatly reduced the risk of information leaks. Before the communication talisman was invented, such detailed information was either transmitted by people in secret, or via trained flying insects, demonic beasts, and so on. An example of this were the intelligent insects cultivated by the Black Moon Tower. This method of transmission actually carried the risk of being intercepted, or not reaching its recipient due to an accident midway. Moreover, there would be delays in the time taken to transmit information. As soon as the communication talisman appeared, it became possible to transmit information in real time. As long as there was no risk of an information leak, and the communication talisman was not stolen, it was a perfectly safe method of information transmission. Therefore, all spies used communication talismans to transmit information. Of course, the communication talismans used were definitely not ones used by regular sector family members. These were prepared separately and had a high degree of confidentiality. Disposable communication talismans were still very popular. After transmitting certain confidential information, these talismans would self-destruct immediately after the communication was completed to prevent any possible mishaps. Some forces and organizations preferred to use this type of communication talisman. No one knew that a certain person had access to it all. The Heavenly Tao Talisman plan had successfully been implemented in the Northern Zone. However, it was not easy to expand the plan beyond the Northern Zone to the other zones. The distance between each region was too large, as each zone was separated by either a vast mountain range or an endless ocean. One could not rely on human strength to cross these borders. Even Supreme Realm experts would easily encounter dangers and die along the way. Only Heaven Realm experts had the ability to cross zones. The 9 zones were not only populated by humans, demons and monsters. There were other races residing in the border areas between zones. There were many experts among them. However, in terms of overall strength, they could not compare to the 3 major races. To communicate between zones, forces usually used a zone crossing array formation. Zone crossing array formations were extremely difficult to establish, and they were mostly set up by ancient powerful experts. On the surface, the Northern Zone did not possess a zone crossing array formation. However, it was unknown as to whether there were any remnant zone crossing array formations in some of the ancient ruins. Even if there were, these were not something that ordinary forces could utilize. The zone crossing array formation of the Northern Zone had been destroyed by the human divine realm expert before the Great War against the demons. This was done to delay the reinforcements from the humans of the other zones. Only then would he have the chance to turn the tide of the crisis and rise to the position of the Northern Zone's human king. However, it was still possible for those from other zones to come to the Northern Zone. For example, Shangxing had mistakenly entered a great zone crossing array formation and arrived at the Northern Zone and Southern region. Chuzan was not in a hurry to expand the Heavenly Tao Talisman plan to the other zones. It would make its way there eventually. As long as the other zones began to use the communication talismans, the Heavenly Tao Talisman plan in that zone would begin. The most important thing now was to increase his own strength. One could not be considered invincible in the 9 zones unless they entered the Tao realm. Your in-name disciple Ren Chang has comprehended the Tao of Yin and Yang. The cycle of life and death allowed him to break through to the divine realm. You have been rewarded with 500 years worth of cultivation. The system's reward suddenly arrived. Ren Chang had broken through to the divine realm. It was a little faster than expected. He had surpassed the Buddha Nanwu and had become the first person under Chuzan to break through to the divine realm. Buddha Nanwu was also about to break through. Chuzan received the reward. His cultivation level, which had just reached the 5th level of the divine realm, was now only half a step away from the 6th level of the divine realm after receiving the 500-year cultivation boost. Given Chuzan's current cultivation speed, even without another system reward, he would be able to break through to the 6th level of the divine realm within half a month. He was one step closer to the Tao realm. At present, Chuzan spent all his time on cultivation, except for his daily search for Tao realm experts through the Tao-seeking mirror. It could be said that he was extremely hardworking. Without any new members joining, the Great Tao Communication Group became relatively quiet. The most active ones were still Hu Tai and Ying Kong. The others would occasionally participate in the discussions. The 3 Daoyuan realm experts rarely participated. To Tao realm experts, a year or 2 passed quickly. It would be over in the blink of an eye while one comprehended the Great Tao. Chuzan paid special attention to Ying Kong because he was the weakest among the group. Ying Kong was extremely grateful that he was able to receive the attention of a big shot like Chuzan. He was extremely excited. It was precisely because of this that Chuzan would occasionally use Ying Kong to clarify matters regarding the Tao realm by asking him questions. Ying Kong would always straightforwardly answer everything he knew. Therefore, Chuzan learned a lot about the Tao realm through his discussions with Ying Kong. For example, about Daoyuan. Daoyuan were eras. From the beginning to the peak to the end, this long period of time was known as Daoyuan. The peak of Daoyuan the last time was different from this Daoyuan. Although they were on the same path, there would still be some differences. How long did a Daoyuan last? It was not fixed. The shortest was no less than 1 billion years. Chuzan was speechless when he heard that. How long had these two big shots lived if they had been around for 2 Daoyuan? They were truly old monsters. Ying Kong did not know how a Daoyuan would end. He also did not know what would happen when a Daoyuan ended. All he knew was that when a Daoyuan ended and the world entered a new Daoyuan, the laws of heaven and earth would be reborn and reorganized. There would be great changes. Chu Zan also understood that Ying Kong was, after all, a weak existence in the Dao realm. It was not strange at all that he did not know anything about how a Daoyuan would end. Hong Yuanchu, on the other hand, had experienced 2 Daoyuan, and he was also in the Daoyuan realm. Naturally, he would know about this matter. Chu Zan also found out the answer as to where the Dao realm experts were. They were not in the 9 zones, but also in the 9 zones. In the depths of the desolate ancient zone, there was a unique area that was the closest to the great Dao in the 9 zones. At the same time, there was a barrier between it and the 9 zones. Therefore, it was in the 9 zones, but also not in the 9 zones. The Dao realm experts did not appear in the 9 zones. That was because if one entered the 9 zones and then returned to that unique area, one would encounter a calamity when passing through the barrier. After re-entering, one would need to spend even more time to dissipate the aura of the 9 zones they had accumulated in order to get closer to the great Dao. Therefore, when he learned that the Dao realm experts would not appear in the 9 zones, Chu Zan let out a sigh of relief. He could continue to stay in seclusion and slowly become stronger. Once he broke through to the Dao realm, he would be invincible in the 9 zones. After learning the basics about the Dao realm, it was easy for Chu Zan to deceive a Dao realm expert like Ying Kong. Or even Hu Tai or Qing Qing, he deceived them all. 1 man, and 2 monsters, were filled with respect for a big shot like him. Being able to enter the Great Dao Communication Group was the greatest opportunity of their lives. Deceiving people was just Chu Zan's hobby though. Everything still depended on one's strength. He had been comprehending the stable Dao principle. After his cultivation reached the 5th level of the divine realm, he already had a faint Dao aura lingering around him. Chu Zan felt that he was becoming more and more stable. As expected of the stable Dao principle. It suited his personality very well. Chapter 172, Don't Let Yourself Be Bullied. Chu Zan took out the myriad heavenly mirror and connected it to Hu Tianya. Ever since Chu Zan taught him the Jengjin White Tiger technique, he had not triggered any system rewards. He was a child of fate, how could the difference between him and the others be so great? Chu Zan was speechless. Ding Yu and Wang Luo would occasionally trigger system rewards. Hu Tianya was also a fated son, so why was there no movement at all from his side? The image projection appeared. Chu Zan's face turned black when he saw Hu Tianya. This tiger was still lying on the mountaintop. He had not left at all. His strength had increased very quickly, from the 3rd level of the Truth Realm to the 9th level of the Truth Realm. Moreover, the tiger was getting stronger and stronger. Some white spots appeared on its fur. Its bloodline was showing signs of transformation. As expected, when he broke through to the Emperor realm, he would undergo a transformation and awaken part of the white tiger's bloodline. This tiger disciple of his was lying there peacefully without any desire to fight. How could he allow something like that? If Hu Tianya did not fight and cause trouble, how could he trigger a system reward? He could not let him laze around anymore. Chu Zan's image projection appeared. Hu Tianya greets master. Hu Tianya immediately knelt down and kowtowed. He reacted extremely quickly. Chu Zan was speechless, as expected of someone who possessed Hu Tai's bloodline inheritance. Hu Tianya, yes, master, what is the purpose of your cultivation? For what reason are you becoming stronger? Chu Zan decided to deceive Hu Tianya to make him create trouble and leave this mountaintop. For what reason? Hu Tianya was stunned and asked, so that I won't be eaten. Chu Zan's facial expression darkened. He could only endure his temper and continue, you were expelled from the Heavenly Tiger tribe. Have you never thought of going back to flaunt your newfound power? Your fiancé despised you. Have you ever thought of regaining your dignity? I taught you the Jengjin White Tiger technique. It is a supreme technique that can help you transform into a godly white tiger. Don't you want to be invincible among those of the same level? Hu Tianya said carefully, yes, I do, but I'm afraid of danger. Chu Zan's facial expression turned even darker. What sort of excuse is that? Danger is everywhere. You have been lying on this mountaintop and would make an easy target. Danger can come at any time. You are a heavenly tiger. The monster race eats flesh and blood to become stronger. Your identity alone makes you a tempting target. Only by taking the initiative to attack can you resolve the danger. How can you become a proper tiger without experiencing trials and dangers? Don't you want to be a tiger overlord? Your ancestors' roar shocked the 9 zones, his might resounded in every region. Only when you have achieved that can you live without regrets. Chuzan spewed sentence after sentence at him, and Hu Tianya's blood started to boil, and he became more spirited. Your fiancé despised you, and the heavenly tiger tribe despised you too. It's time for you to reclaim your dignity. After suffering for so long, won't you change your ways? Don't let yourself be bullied. The name Hu Tianya should resound in the monster zone. Hu Tianya's blood was boiling. He was full of passion as he roared toward the sky. Master is right. I want to fight. I want to become a tiger overlord. I want them to know that their choice was the wrong one. I want to let the Azure Dragon Princess know that losing me was the biggest mistake of her life. I won't be bullied anymore. Chuzan nodded in appreciation. He was very satisfied with Hu Tianya. Go, fight for your dignity and become the legendary white tiger worshipped by all the monsters. Yes, Master. Hu Tianya was full of energy. He jumped up and quickly left the mountaintop. He wanted to go back to the Heavenly Tiger Tribe and the Azure Dragon Princess and shout, I will reclaim my dignity. I won't be bullied any longer. Master was right, his blood was boiling. If he did not roar, he would not be able to release his pent-up emotions. Chuzan nodded with satisfaction. How could Hu Tianya, the son of fate of the Heavenly Tiger Tribe, laze around on a mountaintop? He deactivated the myriad heavenly mirror and looked forward to Hu Tianya triggering the system reward. He then connected to Ren Chang. He found that Ren Chang had escaped from the fallen god cave and was currently sitting cross-legged on a mountain peak in the desolate ancient zone, cultivating. Greetings, Master. Ren Chang bowed respectfully. If not for his master, he would have turned into a dried corpse by now. He would have never had the chance to break through to the divine realm. I'm glad that you managed to break through. Chuzan remembered that the end of the Daoyuan was approaching. He had a feeling that something big would definitely happen to the 9 zones. The opening of the Asura ancient land would probably be one of the starting points. Thus, he said, the 9 zones are about to experience turmoil. It's both an opportunity and a crisis. In 10 years, you will head to the southern region of the northern zone. The 9 zones were about to experience turmoil. Ren Changhei's heart skipped a beat. He immediately asked, Master, what kind of turmoil will the 9 zones experience? When it's time for you to know, I'll naturally tell you. 10 years later, head to the southern region of the northern zone and await my instructions. Yes, Master. Ren Chang respectfully accepted the order. However, he thought that something must have happened, and that his master wanted to implement a plan in the northern zone. This medicinal pill will help you to speed up your cultivation and solidify your foundation. Chuzan sent over 2 bottles of divine origin pills. He had too many medicinal pills anyway, so he could not finish them all. Ren Chang was only a first-level divine realm cultivator, so he was still a little weak. Chuzan wanted him to increase his strength as soon as possible. Only then could he help him when the Asura ancient land opened. After all, he had promised Qinying that he would prevent any cultivators above the Emperor realm from interfering in the fight for the Fate treasures. The human divine realm expert back then would not be a first or second level divine realm cultivator. If he aimed to become the human king of the northern zone, then he had to be close to the bottleneck of his divine realm cultivation. His guess was that the human divine realm expert was about to break through to the Dao realm. Even if he was not at the peak of the divine realm, he should be quite close. Ren Changhei's strength was not weak, but there had been countless plans and preparations made for the opening of the Asura ancient land. When the Asura ancient land opened, there would definitely be divine realm experts interfering. Who would not be tempted by a zone's fate treasure? 2 bottles of divine origin pills were enough for Ren Chang to quickly advance to the 3rd or even 4th level of the divine realm. After all, these were medicinal pills produced by the system. Not everyone was like Chuzan, who needed such a huge amount of resources to break through. Thank you, Master. Ren Chang received the medicinal pills and became extremely excited. He had successfully broken through to the divine realm after taking these medicinal pills, so he was very clear about the effectiveness of these medicinal pills. Do you have any doubts about your cultivation that need to be clarified? Chuzan continued to ask. A few. Ren Changhei's face was full of shame. He believed more and more that he was a good-for-nothing and not a genius. He actually had not completely comprehended the yin-yang combination divine seal. Every time he felt that he had already comprehended it, and his strength had increased, he realized that there was still something he had not comprehended. This feeling became even more apparent after he broke through a major realm. He felt that the profoundness of the yin-yang combination divine seal was endless. Speak. After clarifying Ren Chenghe's cultivation doubts and explaining the yin-yang combination divine seal to him, Chu Zan deactivated the myriad heavenly mirror. After ending the connection with Ren Cheng, Chu Zan recalled Du Yuan. It was time to cultivate this servant of his. As a supreme realm cultivator, he was somewhat weak. Thus, he summoned Chu Yi. Chu Yi had been cultivating in the origin Dao crystal. He had already reached the third level of the divine realm. Chu Zan even suspected that if they continued to cultivate in the origin Dao crystal, Chu Yi and Chu Er would transform into a different kind of living being. They would truly possess the spiritual wisdom and consciousness of living beings. Chapter 173. The beginning of the spread of Buddhism in the Demon Zone. Chu Zan took out some Supreme Realm cultivation pills, as well as the pills for breaking through to the Heaven Realm, and gave them to Chu Yi. He would have Chu Yi pass them to Du Yuan. Currently, Du Yuan was serving as an expert in the Black Moon Tower's guard division, and overseeing the Black Moon Tower of the southern region. He had been awaiting Chu Zan's instructions. Before the Asura ancient land opened, it would not be hard to raise Du Yuan's strength to the Heaven Realm with the aid of pills. Those who ran errands for him had to at least be Heaven Realm experts. Otherwise, how could they be worthy of their status as big shots? Chu Yi left immediately. Apart from medicinal pills, Chu Zan also got him to hand over a communication talisman to Du Yuan. This was a specially made communication talisman. Not only could it send messages, it could also transmit voice messages, and even converse in real time with the other party. Chu Yi was not gone for long. He soon returned and continued to cultivate in the origin Dao crystal. Chu Zan looked at the origin Dao crystal. It had already grown a little stronger, and it was not far from its next transformation. If it underwent another transformation, the functions of the origin Dao crystal would be upgraded, and the pocket dimension would also be upgraded. More importantly, the origin Dao crystal's great Dao would be upgraded after the transformation. There had been no new members in the Great Dao Communication Group for some time. As usual, Chu Zan took out the Dao-seeking mirror and began to search again. The compass needle on the surface of the mirror rotated around and around. The search failed again, and he found nothing. Based on the results of his usage of the Dao-seeking mirror, he could tell how few Dao realm experts there were. Of course, he could not discount the fact that the Dao-seeking mirror was not powerful enough to search for Dao realm experts. This was also partly because Chu Zan's cultivation level was not high enough. Your disciple, Demon Buddha, has spread Buddhist Dharma and converted 100,000 Buddhists. You have been rewarded with the myriad incarnation technique. The system's reward suddenly arrived. Converted 100,000 Buddhists. Chu Zan was shocked. How long had it been? Unbelievably, Demon Buddha had already converted 100,000 demons to Buddhism. Converting demons into Buddhists was the first step. He took out the myriad heavenly mirror and connected it to Demon Buddha. The demon zone, within a certain tribe. At this moment, the sound of chanting resounded everywhere. Buddhist light enveloped the tribe and dispelled the demonic power. On a high platform, Demon Buddha, who was in his snow-white monk robe, was seated cross-legged. He was solemn and projected the demeanor of an eminent monk. Below him, regardless of gender, age, or age, all had their hands clasped together and were chanting Buddhist scriptures. This was a small tribe in the demon zone. It was an unremarkable demon tribe that belonged to the lowest level of the demon race. They did not have the handsome or beautiful appearance of the heavenly demon tribe. They were ugly and had sharp fangs at the corners of their mouths. Their 10 slender fingers were like eagle claws. Their originally red hair had all been shaved off, and they were now all bald. Their shiny bald heads emitted a faint Buddhist light. Everyone was very devout as they chanted Buddhist scriptures. The demons of this tribe were not strong. The strongest was only at the first level of the Emperor realm. Most of them were in the profound realm and spirit realm, and those who had a cultivation level above the void realm accounted for less than 10%. At this moment, they were converting their demonic power into Buddhist power and cultivating Buddhist Dharma instead. Demon Buddha was already at the 6th level of the Emperor realm, and he had been in this tribe for half a year. If he wanted to spread Buddhist Dharma in the demon zone and turn the demons into Buddhists, the first thing he thought of was to convert the low-level demons in all parts of the demon zone. These low-level demons had impure bloodlines and limited talent. Most of them had already reached the end of their potential after breaking through to the Emperor realm. However, this was because of their identity as demons. Once they had enough comprehension ability, and devoutly practiced the Buddhist teachings, they would no longer be limited by their natural talent as demons. If a large number of low-level demons in the demon zone converted to Buddhism, there would definitely be some who could develop a deep comprehension of Buddhism, and therefore would have outstanding talent in cultivating Buddhism. Demon Buddha himself had personally experienced it. His own comprehension of Buddhism and devoutness had reached a high realm. The Emperor realm would no longer be their upper limit. It would only be a matter of time before they broke through to the Supreme Realm, Heaven Realm, and perhaps even beyond. Therefore, Demon Buddha came to this tribe to enlighten the demons here. He spread Buddhism and equality among all living beings. After a period of time, he used both kindness and power, both hardness and softness, to enlighten them. Everyone in the tribe now believed in Buddhism and had become devout Buddhists. Demon Buddha picked the most talented believers in the tribe and taught them a higher level of Buddhism, officially appointing them as Buddhist monks. In the future, they would be like Demon Buddha, traversing the demon zone to spread Buddhism and vanquish demons. The demons in this tribe quickly realized that, after practicing Buddhism, their minds became clear, their brains became more active, and they also became stronger. They also seemed to have become somewhat hypocritical. When they opened their mouths and said Amitabha, their minds were clear, their eyes were pious, and they were filled with passion for the future. They seemed to devote their entire lives to the faith in their hearts. After enlightening the tribe and imparting the Buddhist Dharma, Demon Buddha stood up and put his palms together. Amitabha, the sins of the demon zone are deep. Greed, anger and delusion are unceasing. Blood, slaughter, and plunder are everywhere, corrupting the souls here. I, Buddha, am merciful. I want to enlighten the demon zone and turn it into a land of bliss. If I don't change this hell, then who will? Even if I have to sacrifice my body, I want to spread the great Buddhist teachings. The disciples of the Buddhist sect should also spread Buddhist beliefs everywhere. The strongest and most powerful people in the tribe all clasped their palms together and said, Amitabha Buddha, we will obey your orders. Good. Demon Buddha nodded in satisfaction. His body was covered in Buddhist light as he walked barefoot and left the tribe. The Buddhist disciples in the tribe had devout and fanatical gazes. They brought their newly refined Buddhist weapons and left the tribe, heading out in all directions. The spread of Buddhism in the demon zone had officially begun. Chuzan witnessed everything and sighed at the speed and effectiveness of Demon Buddha's actions and methods. He was indeed worthy of being one of the children of fate of the demon zone. Chuzan had made the right choice in taking him in as his disciple back then. Although the spread of Buddhism in the demon zone would face certain obstacles, as their numbers grew, more and more people would cultivate Buddhism. After all, the Buddhist Dharma and Buddhist power had the ability to restrain demons. Some demons, especially low-level ones, discovered that cultivating Buddhist Dharma could increase their strength. How could they not be tempted by this? Of course, when the spread of the Buddhist Dharma expanded and threatened some of the top tribes of the demon race, they would be severely suppressed. These top tribes would not want the low-level demons to break their shackles and grow to become equals with them. This was especially the case for the heavenly demon tribe. As the ruling tribe of the demon zone, they did not want the low-level demons to reach the level of the heavenly demon tribe after cultivating Buddhist Dharma. If those low-level demons rose up, they would challenge the ruling authority of the heavenly demon tribe. The Buddhist Dharma would be banned and the low-level demons would not be allowed to cultivate. At that time, a fierce conflict would arise. There would definitely be some people FRP, the heavenly demon tribe, who would try cultivating Buddhist Dharma. Once they did, their hearts would change and they would no longer be on the same side as the heavenly demon tribe. After cultivating Buddhist Dharma, they were no longer members of the heavenly demon tribe. Because of its uniqueness, the spread of Buddhist Dharma in the demon zone would not be able to be stopped once it started. However, for it to become the mainstream and replace the demonic beliefs of the demon race, it would have to go through an intense process of conflict. At that time, the Buddhist race would need experts. And Buddha Nanwu was undoubtedly an expert of the Buddhist race. With his presence in the demon zone supporting the existence of the Buddhist race, it would be able to grow safely. Chuzan was almost certain that, although there would be twists and turns in the process of transforming the demons into Buddhists, they would definitely succeed in the end. Even if they could not convert everyone to Buddhism, at the very least, the demon zone would be dominated by the Buddhist race. The rest of the demon race would decline and have to eke out a survival in hiding. Chapter 174, Demon Buddha. Demon Buddha walked barefoot. A day later, he arrived at the site of another low-level tribe of the demon race. Amitabha Buddha, benefactor, you are fated with Buddhism. Where did this baldy come from? What Buddhism? What nonsense is this? Benefactor, you are offending Buddhism. You have committed a grave sin. You should put down your butcher knife and convert to Buddhism. Only then can you wash away your sins. You are the one who has committed a heinous crime. Baldy, prepare to die. Buddha is merciful. Lord Buddha, I was wrong. I was wrong. I will put down the butcher's knife and convert to Buddhism right now. Amitabha Buddha, good, choose on. This method was too damn simple and crude. As expected of a Buddha with demonic nature. Demon Buddha then settled down in the tribe. The tribespeople could only return and not leave. Buddhist light enveloped the tribe, and the sound of chanting began to ring out. ... FCK, damn Baldy, I'll fight it out with you. Ah, stop chanting, what is this thing? Amitabha, Buddha is merciful. What Buddha? I don't want to listen, I don't want to listen. Unfilial son, quickly kneel down and repent. If you dare to offend Buddhism, I will not forgive you. The tribe was very lively. Some people with weak willpower, who were easily swayed, were immediately converted to Buddhism. Demonic power began to transform into Buddhist power. After tasting the sweetness of Buddhist Dharma, they became even more devout. To those who still insisted on being demons, they were not courteous at all. Even if those people were their own children, they would still angrily attack and teach them a lesson. Then, they would tell them that their father was a Buddhist, so of course, they were also FC King Buddhists. Buddhists could not give birth to demons. If you are a demon, then you are definitely not my son. I will kill you with my own hands. Usually, at this time, these filial children would suddenly realize that they were Buddhists. They all expressed their desire to convert. As for the children who became Buddhists first, they would glare at their parents and say that as a buddies, how could they have demon parents? As such, they wanted to kill their parents. Coincidentally, their parents would at this time come to a realization and express their desire to convert to Buddhism. Chuzan watched this scene with his mouth agape. Was this how Demon Buddha was going to convert the demon race? Was this method not too simple and rough? In the tribe, there were still some stubborn demons who had strong beliefs and were unwilling to convert. No matter how much Demon Buddha chanted the scriptures, it was useless. At this moment, Demon Buddha spoke. Amitabha, you evil demons have committed grave sins. This penniless monk will convert you. Boom, Buddhist light blossomed as a palm struck out, directly killing all of the stubborn demons. Amitabha, good, good. The entire tribe clasped their hands together and chanted the name of Buddha. Vanquishing demons provides boundless merit. Demon Buddha clasped his hands together. The corners of Chuzan's mouth twitched. As expected of someone who bore the name Demon Buddha, he was truly demonic in nature. He got down to thinking. Was the way Demon Buddha did things right or wrong? It did not feel like the Buddhist way of doing things, but more like a demon's. He wanted to turn the demons into Buddhists, not make them even more demonic than they already were. Should he correct Demon Buddha? Chuzan hesitated. In the end, he decided to give a lecture on the Buddhist scriptures to Demon Buddha again. As for how he interpreted it, that was up to him. A Buddha with demonic nature promoting Buddhism in the demon zone might not be a bad thing after all. Perhaps, once Demon Buddha's cultivation level increased and his comprehension of Buddhist Dharma became deeper, his understanding of Buddhism would change. He would not go down the demonic path. After Demon Buddha finished chanting the Buddhist scriptures, Chuzan met him. First, he took some time to clarify Demon Buddha's cultivation doubts, as well as answer some questions he had about Buddhism. Then, he taught him the scriptures. Thank you for your guidance, Master. I have comprehended them. Demon Buddha put his palms together and had a kind expression on his face. The Buddhist light around his body was filled with compassion. Chuzan nodded. He hoped that Demon Buddha's comprehension had gone down the right path and that he would not become even more demonic. He then ended the connection with Demon Buddha. Chuzan examined the system reward. The myriad incarnation technique allows one to create myriad incarnations. One can transform into many, and many can transform into one. They are everywhere. It was a very powerful incarnation technique. After cultivating the myriad incarnation technique, not only could one create incarnations, but they could also create incarnations from external objects. In theory, there was no upper limit to the number of incarnations. The strongest incarnations could display 90% of the original body's strength, and the weakest no less than 10% of the original body's strength. After cultivating the myriad incarnation technique, he would be a one-man army that was incomparably powerful. Chu Zan received the reward. The myriad incarnations technique was instilled into his mind. He immediately entered a mysterious state of comprehension. After comprehending the myriad incarnations technique, Chu Zan's mind focused, and the divine power in his body surged. In an instant, an incarnation appeared. The incarnation had 90% of Chu Zan's strength. Moreover, his mind and consciousness was linked to Chu Zan. Chu Zan continued to create incarnations. Within a short period, dozens of incarnations had appeared in the courtyard, and the weakest had 60% of Chu Zan's strength. After creating so many incarnations, Chu Zan felt that his divine power and soul power had been exhausted. However, after consuming a pill, he quickly recovered. This myriad incarnations technique was extremely powerful. It was a great technique that was directly connected to the Great Tao. Having so many incarnations activated did not seem to consume much of his strength. It seemed that the power source of each incarnation came from the Great Tao. It was thanks to this that the consumption of strength from his main body was so small. With a single thought, all of the incarnations disappeared and returned to the main body. Chu Zan looked at the teacup on the table and tapped it with his finger, transforming the teacup into an incarnation. In that instant, the teacup underwent some sort of change. A figure appeared, whose face changed according to Chu Zan's desires. It did not look like Chu Zan, but rather a middle-aged man with a square face. His strength was only about 10% of Chu Zan's original body. The incarnation's strength was probably affected by the level of the teacup, which resulted in it not being as powerful as the earlier incarnations. Creating an incarnation from an external object followed the same rules. Its mind and consciousness was linked to Chu Zan. Chu Zan instantly thought of many wonderful uses for this incarnation technique. He now had a wonderful method to turn an external object into an incarnation. These incarnations could disguise themselves as other people, or even perform secret missions. Moreover, it would not expose him. He could send a wisp of his soul into the incarnation, who would execute the plan perfectly. If anything went wrong, the wisp of his soul would cause the incarnation to self-destruct, ensuring that he would not be exposed. Even if a small wisp of his soul self-destructed, it would not have any effect on his original body. Chu Zan felt slightly regretful. Although the myriad incarnation technique was mysterious and powerful, his incarnation was unable to leave the courtyard. He did not dare to gamble with such an important matter. He was worried that, if his incarnation left, the system would judge it as him having left the courtyard, and reset the seclusion record timer. Therefore, even if he had many ideas about how to use the myriad incarnation technique to cause trouble, he was unable to implement them. The myriad incarnation technique was a great technique that was directly connected to the Great Tao. It was difficult for ordinary people to comprehend and cultivate it. It was even difficult for Tao realm experts. Not to mention, for someone like Chu Zan, he could create as many incarnations as he pleased. Chu Zan thought of his disciples. They were all children of fate and were good at causing trouble. The incarnation technique was very suitable for them. The myriad incarnation technique was too high level, so they could not cultivate it for the time being. Therefore, it was very necessary for him to create a lower-leveled version of the incarnation technique. For the current Chu Zan, creating a low-leveled incarnation technique was not too difficult. He could derive the technique directly from the myriad incarnation technique. Chapter 175, Changes in the Evil Imperial Court. Chu Zan did exactly as he thought. He immediately derived a low-level incarnation technique from the myriad incarnation technique. After more than an hour of refinement and tweaking, the new incarnation technique was finally created. The low-level incarnation technique would allow its wielder to create up to 3 original body incarnations. The strongest incarnation possessed 70% of the original body's strength, and its mind would be linked to the original body. As for the power source of the incarnation, apart from the original body providing a part of the power, the rest of the power came from the laws of heaven and earth. It could create 12 incarnations at most from external objects, whose strength would not exceed 60% of the original bodies. The wielder could send a wisp of their soul into incarnations. To cultivate this incarnation technique, one had to have at least reached the Emperor realm. Those below the Emperor realm were unable to cultivate it because the technique relied on the laws of heaven and earth. A lower-leveled version for those below the Emperor realm would require the original body to provide all of the power for the incarnation. Chu Zan had no interest in creating such a useless technique. The low-level version of the myriad incarnation technique was named the minor incarnation technique by Chu Zan. There was no reward from the system for this self-created incarnation technique. Perhaps this was because his cultivation realm was too high in comparison to the level of the technique created. Chuzan called Shangxing out and passed the incarnation technique to him. Shangxing was responsible for refining communication talismans and other artifacts, and was currently relying on the puppets to assist him. He relied on the general production line to create the low-level communication talismans. With the incarnation technique, he could create incarnations to help him out. Their minds and consciousness would be linked to his. It was equivalent to having more than one Shangxing to refine things together. In this way, he could make more complicated and higher-level items. Shangxing was pleasantly surprised. After thanking Chuzan, he went back into the pocket dimension to comprehend the incarnation technique. Su Shaner also came over to learn the incarnation technique, and Chuzan passed it to her. He also passed it to Chu Yun. Chu Pingfan, on the other hand, cultivated the extreme Tao, which was rather special. He was not interested in the incarnation technique. Moreover, his talents did not lie in this aspect. Learning the incarnation technique would be rather difficult for him. After passing on the incarnation technique, Chuzan relaxed again. Other than using the Tao-seeking mirror to search for Tao realm experts and occasionally using the myriad heavenly mirror, Chuzan spent most of his time on cultivation. He wanted to break through to the Tao realm as soon as possible. The stable Tao principle was something he focused on cultivating and comprehending, and his strength increased by leaps and bounds. As long as he solidified his cultivation foundation, and comprehended the stable Tao principle, he would be able to smoothly break through to the Tao realm. He did not need to waste time on condensing and comprehending other Tao principles. The key to breaking through to the Tao realm from the divine realm was condensing and comprehending Tao principles, and cultivating Tao aura. This was an enormous heavenly chasm. Countless divine realm experts had fallen on the path of comprehending the Tao principles. When it came to cultivating the Tao principles, they all struggled to make headway. Comprehending Tao principles and cultivating Tao aura depended on one's comprehension of the great Tao. It also required time to accumulate one's cultivation foundation. Even if one had sufficient comprehension of the great Tao, it would still require a long period of time for one to solidify one's cultivation foundation. Bit by bit, one would cultivate Tao aura and then condense it and make it part of their cultivation foundation. Their entire person would undergo a transformation. Their divine power would transform into Tao aura and Tao principles, transcending the laws of heaven and earth and bringing them closer to the great Tao. This was the Tao realm. Over the long years, those who were able to break through to the Tao realm were all extremely talented, possessed great luck and fate, and had great perseverance. Half a month later, Chuzan suddenly received a piece of information. The evil imperial court had changed hands. To be more precise, the old evil king and the little evil king had left the stage. The force behind the evil imperial court had quietly arrived in the southern region and had taken over the evil imperial court. The leader of this force hailed from the Chaos Zone's Great Evil Palace and was the evil son of the Great Evil Palace. So they turned out to be the force behind the evil imperial court. Now, the evil imperial court was in the hands of the evil son. The old evil king had been sent to the Chaos Zone. On the surface, the evil king was still the leader of the evil imperial court, but, in reality, he no longer had any power. Chuzan reckoned that his situation would not be too good. The one who suffered the most was the little evil king. He did not know why, but the evil son just did not like him and tortured the little evil king for a few days. The little evil king was tortured until he was an inch from death. It was too miserable. In the end, he escaped from the evil imperial court with the help of a trusted aide who risked his life. He escaped into the vast mountain range and disappeared. The heretic cultivators of the evil imperial court cheered. The familiar evil imperial court had finally returned. At this time, the evil cultivators who rose up because of the new laws of the evil king were all ostracized and even killed. The changes in the evil imperial court did not cause much of a stir. It seemed that the evil son did not want the fact that the evil imperial court had already changed hands to be exposed so quickly. On the surface, it was still the evil king who was in charge. The evil son was very low-key. However, Chuzan knew that this evil son was indeed worthy of being called evil son. In terms of brutality, he was not much worse than the little evil king from back then. The change in the evil imperial court had come too quickly. Chuzan realized that the southern region was about to undergo changes. The people and forces that had laid out the plans for the Asura ancient land would all begin to appear. Before the Asura ancient land officially opened, there would definitely be a battle. He did not care about what would happen to the evil king. He did not care about whether the little evil king would live or die. A month later, Chu Zan was cultivating when he suddenly opened his eyes. The evil king had fallen. He immediately used the heavenly Tao talisman to investigate and finally found out the reason why the evil king had fallen. The little evil king was the evil king's biological son. How could his father not be angry after seeing his son abused and treated so cruelly by the evil son? He pointed out that the evil son had violated the rules by treating the little evil king cruelly. According to the rules of the evil imperial court, all of the evil kings had the right to go to the Chaos Zone's Great Evil Palace and become deacons there. The people from the Great Evil Palace had no right to punish the evil king or the heir of the evil king. Therefore, the evil son had undoubtedly broken the rules. However, the evil son was the evil son after all. His status in the Great Evil Palace was high, so what did the rules mean to him? The rules were made by the Great Evil Palace. Naturally, he could overturn them. It was precisely because the evil son had ignored the rules that the evil king had been filled with resentment, especially after witnessing the cruel torture his own son had suffered. Therefore, he had been thinking of taking revenge on evil son. Finally, he found an opportunity and suddenly launched a sneak attack. In the end, the evil king fell. The difference in their cultivation levels was too great. Even a sneak attack was useless. Chu Zan shook his head. The evil king was really miserable. The evil king could not be considered his subordinate. Based on the current situation, he was also a useless chess piece. If he died, then so be it. No one would avenge the evil king, and the little evil king did not have the ability to do so. Faced with the evil son of the Great Evil Palace, how could he, a mere little evil king, who was down and out, have the strength to take revenge? After all, he was not the fated son of the southern region. Unless the little evil king encountered a great opportunity and rose up, there was no hope of revenge. Shaking his head, Chu Zan did not continue to pay attention to the matters of the evil imperial court. His cultivation session ended, so Chu Zan took out the Tao-seeking mirror as usual to search for Tao realm experts. It had been a long time since he had added a new member to the Great Tao Communication Group. The next transformation stage of the Origin Tao Crystal was about to happen. Adding a new member into the group could speed up the transformation process. The compass needle on the mirror rotated. He had thought that his search would come up empty again, but, suddenly, a dark shadow appeared on the mirror. Chu Zan was stunned. Why was it a dark shadow? Was this person a unique Tao realm expert? He felt helpless. The Tao-seeking mirror had no information on the Tao realm experts he found, so he had to make contact with the other party as usual. Chapter 176, The Netherworld Race. In a dark and gloomy cave, an illusory figure was seated cross-legged on a stone platform. Her body was like a divine soul, but it was not a divine soul. It was between the illusory and the real. Her body emitted a faint cold aura. Suddenly, her body solidified, and a solemn expression appeared on her beautiful and cold face. She shouted in a low voice, "Who is it?" A gentle voice was heard in reply. "Hello, little friend. I was looking for a fated person through the Great Tao. Little friend, you have the honor of coming into contact with me. I wonder which race you are from and what is your cultivation level. Who are you? I am the Dao Seeker. Are you willing to provide me with that information? I have a great Tao communication group, and there are fellow Taoists in the Tao realm there. Are you willing to join us?" His voice was gentle and did not contain any hostility. He spoke in the tone of a kind senior. Dao Seeker. Yusu's heart trembled. She was weighing the pros and cons of this matter. Should she join him or not? Could this be a trap? In the end, she still could not resist the temptation of a great opportunity to befriend a Dao Seeker. She opened her mouth and said, "I am Yusu. I have reached the 13th level of the Tao realm and hail from the Netherworld race." Yusu. Chu Zan had never heard of her or her race before. They should be one of the minor races in the 9 zones. However, how could a race with an expert at the 13th level of the Tao realm be unknown? Was it because they were too low-key? A 13th level Tao realm expert, other than Chu Zan, would be ranked second to last in the Great Tao Communication Group. Even so, she still exceeded Ying Kong by a country mile. Chu Zan could not help but mourn for Ying Kong. The first person to enter the Great Tao Communication Group seemed destined to remain at the bottom. "Little friend Yusu, I'll add you to the Great Tao Communication Group." Chu Zan then added Yusu into the group of Great Tao. "We have a new member, little friend Yusu from the Netherworld race. Her cultivation base is at the 13th level of the Tao realm." Chu Zan introduced her to the group. Hong Yuanchu actually appeared out of the blue. The Netherworld race. Were they not defeated and destroyed during the previous Daoyuan? There's still a Dao realm existence among them. Ruo Xian continued, since there are still Dao realm existences among them, why wasn't the Netherworld race active in the last Daoyuan? Could it be that little friend Yu Su reached the Dao realm in the last Daoyuan? Yu Su's heart trembled. She sensed the names of the members of the Great Dao Communication Group. Hong Yuanchu, the great ancestor of the human race. Xu Yang, Hong Yuanchu's best friend. At a glance, all of them were top-tier experts, and their strength was far above hers. Especially the 3 Daoyuan realm experts. They were legendary existences. Yu Su greets the great ancestor of the human race and the seniors. Hong Yuanchu said emotionally, during the previous Daoyuan, the Netherworld race was also a powerful race, their possession ability was especially problematic. Many human geniuses were possessed by the members of the Netherworld race and caused a lot of trouble. Yu Su was silent. An extremely powerful ancestor of the Netherworld race had died at Hong Yuanchu's hands. Little friend Yu Su, there's no need to worry. Since the Great Dao has left a sliver of hope for the Netherworld race, we won't exterminate them. The grudges from back then have already vanished into thin air. Hong Yuanchu continued to speak. Yu Su heaved a sigh of relief. She was afraid that an expert at the level of Hong Yuanchu would once again attack them after finding out that the Netherworld race still existed. That would definitely be a catastrophe. Many thanks, Senior Hong. Yu Su hurriedly thanked him. Ying Kong looked at the message in the group and almost burst into tears. Another new member had joined the group, but he was still ranked dead last. Everyone in the group was a big shot. Only he was trash. Ying Kong seemed to sense the Great Dao's deep malice toward him. Before entering the Great Dao Communication Group, he was an existence at the level of an ancestor. He was extremely powerful. There were many people who tried to curry favor with him. He was a peerless expert of the 3rd level of the Dao realm. However, after entering the Great Dao Communication Group, he discovered that the 3rd level of the Dao realm was just a slightly bigger ant. It was an existence akin to a bottom feeder. Ying Kong greets Sister Yu Su. Ying Kong hurriedly greeted the new member. He had to build a good relationship with her. Everyone in the group was a big shot. Perhaps in the future, he would have to rely on the support of this group of friends. Especially those few big shots who had opened Dao paths. If he was attacked by Dao realm experts who were stronger than him, he could bring out the backers in the group. Chu Zan silently watched the chat group the entire time. The Netherworld race. It seemed that this race was defeated during the last Daoyuan and almost exterminated. It was not surprising then that, even though they possessed a Dao realm expert, no one in the 9 zones had ever heard of their existence. They were probably hiding in some corner of the 9 zones, struggling for their lives. Moreover, they were afraid that others would find out about their existence and completely exterminate the Netherworld race. In the long history of the 9 zones, no one knew how many races had perished. Neither did anyone know just how many races were left on the verge of extinction, struggling to survive. Currently, the 3 races that ruled the 9 zones were the human, demon, and monster races. Chu Zan could not help but think about Demon Buddha at this moment. His plan was to turn demons into Buddhists. Would the demon race end up like the current Netherworld race in a few years? The Buddhist race would replace the demon race. The demon race seemed to be in a state of decline compared to its peak back then. Within the 9 zones, only the human race was still in its peak state. What would happen when this Daoyuan reached its end? Would a new race rise up during the next Daoyuan? Chu Zan did not know what the end of Daoyuan meant or what kind of impact it would bring. He had a premonition that the end of Daoyuan would mean the end of an era. Something big would definitely happen. There were new members in the Great Dao Communication Group. Yu Su's arrival made the group lively again. Ying Kong, Hu Tai, and the others were mostly curious about the Netherworld race. When they reached the Dao realm, the Netherworld race was no longer active in the 9 zones, so they had never come into contact with the Netherworld race. At the border between the southern region and the eastern region, somewhere in the middle of a vast mountain range, a disheveled figure was staggering forward. His pale face was filled with extreme anger and resentment, and his eyes were bloodshot. His aura was chaotic. It was obvious that he had suffered some serious injuries. Evil son. The little evil king gritted his teeth, and his face was twisted with resentment. He held a communication talisman tightly in his hand, and the message on it told him that the evil king had fallen. Evil son, I must kill you. The little evil king roared and cried bitterly as he continued to make his way forward. However, he sensed an increasingly dangerous aura behind him, and felt despair. With his current strength and his heavily injured body, there was no way he could escape. Plop! Suddenly, he staggered and fell to the ground. Plop! He spat out a mouthful of blood. An illusory figure suddenly appeared before his eyes. It seemed to be a divine soul, but it was different from a divine soul. The little evil king's pupils constricted as he hurriedly stood up. He was wary of the figure in front of him. The figure gradually solidified and a pale-faced young man appeared before him. He looked at the little evil king as if he was deep in thought. The little evil king was secretly alarmed. The young man looked like a human, but he did not have the aura that a human should have. His body exuded a faintly cold and gloomy aura. He was not a human. The little evil king retreated in fear. He was now heavily injured, and it was easy for the other party to take advantage of the situation. Not bad. With this identity, I'll be able to explore the world, the young man muttered to himself. Then, his figure turned into an illusory shadow and suddenly pounced toward the little evil king. Get lost. The little evil king raised his hand and attacked. However, the attack directly passed through the illusory figure and did not stop the other party at all. PFF'd. In an instant, the little evil king felt as if he had been possessed by something. His body gradually lost control and his mind and will were restrained. It was as if, in the next moment, his mind and will were about to be devoured and assimilated. Chapter 177. The Great Fortune of the Little Evil King, the Evil Warding Immortal Scripture. The little evil king was shocked. What kind of technique did the other party use? His body was actually possessed. A strong sense of danger washed over him. If he did not take action, he would soon be imprisoned and become someone else's puppet. Roar! He growled and let out a beast-like roar. The little evil king's eyes flashed with viciousness. Before he completely lost control of his body, he stabbed his hand into his shoulder, causing blood to gush out. Burn the blood, refine the blood, transform the blood, purify the blood. A blood-red aura instantly enveloped the little evil king. The blood in his body seemed to be boiling as some sort of power refined it. Although the little evil king did not cultivate evil techniques, his title was still the little evil king. There was no way that he did not at least one evil technique. When he wanted to, he could use an evil technique at any time. In this moment of crisis, the little evil king used his own blood as a catalyst to activate the blood refinement secret technique. After using the blood refinement secret technique on himself, the little evil king instantly felt his life force drain away. His mind and will were burning, as if it would be destroyed at any time. Ah! A scream came from within his body. Immediately after, the blood refinement secret technique seemed to have found its target. The little evil king felt his body relax, and he recovered some control over his body. However, the strange person that possessed his body remained within its body. A fierce expression flashed across his face as he took out a blood-red pill and swallowed it. He then stabbed a few bloody holes into his body with his hands. Blood refinement, flesh refinement, spirit refinement. Ah! A blood-curdling scream came from within the little evil king's body once again. At the same time, the little evil king felt that his flesh and spirit were about to be refined. Just as he was about to collapse, a surge of power coursed through his body to heal his flesh and spirit. This was the power that he had gained from refining the person who possessed him bit by bit. The person who possessed him was trying to escape. The little evil king's eyes were filled with madness. Spirit energy surged as his 10 fingers tapped repeatedly on his body. Bind. He used his spiritual power to bind his body and stop the other party from escaping. Let me out, madman, you're a madman. You'll die too. The little evil king was unmoved. He kept using the blood refinement technique while he gritted his teeth and staggered forward. If Chuzan had seen this scene, he would have been shocked. The little evil king was a protagonist-level character. The screams from within his body became weaker and weaker. The little evil king also felt weak, but he also felt that he had gained some benefits. After refining the strange person that possessed him, he felt that his mind and will seemed to have changed. They had become more tenacious. His physical body also changed, and he felt as if he could transform into an illusory form. It was as if refining the strange person with his blood refinement technique had granted him some of the strange abilities of the strange person. However, that strange ability was very weak and almost imperceptible. The little evil king did not know whether these changes were good or bad. It did not matter. As far as he was concerned, he just wanted to live to see another day. After one last scream, the strange person who possessed him was completely refined. Sensing that he had regained full control of his body, the little evil king hurriedly deactivated the blood refinement technique. He was panting heavily. His injuries were getting worse. 1/3 of his blood had evaporated. His injuries were getting worse, and his cultivation foundation had been damaged. It seemed like there was no longer any hope of him breaking through to the Emperor realm. The little evil king bit his lips. His heart was filled with despair. How could he avenge himself, or his father? He was at a loss. Should he make a trip to the great Qin dynasty? It would be good to see her before he died. But, would he even be able to see her? The little evil king smiled sadly and continued to move forward with staggering steps. Suddenly, he lost his footing and fell down. A bright light appeared before his eyes and enveloped him. Before his consciousness faded completely, the little evil king saw that he was being sucked into an ancient palace. After an unknown amount of time, the little evil king woke up from his coma. He raised his head and found himself inside a palace. The surroundings were silent. Feeling weak all over, the little evil king endured the pain and got up. The palace was very simple and crude. In front of him was a stone table with some bottles and jars placed on it. There seemed to be a book there as well. The little evil Jing's breathing quickened. Had he encountered a fortuitous encounter? Was this an ancient inheritance left behind by some great expert? He was so excited that he cried. It was as if he had seen the hope of rising from the ashes and taking revenge. He staggered to the front of the stone table. He had only walked for a short distance, but he was already feeling exhausted and his legs were weak. It was not hard to imagine the extent of his injuries. The little evil king slumped down on the stone chair, looking at the bottles and jars placed on the stone table, as well as the book. He first checked the healing pills. He was pleasantly surprised to find that among the pills, there were pills that could fix his damaged cultivation foundation. There was even a medicinal pill that could increase one's talent. This was a great opportunity. The little evil king was so excited that he cried. He stood up from the stone chair and knelt down on the ground with a plop. Senior, this junior will definitely inherit your legacy and will not tarnish your reputation. Dong, dong, dong. The little evil king kowtowed 3 times to express his gratitude to the mysterious senior who had left behind this inheritance. He sat back down on the stone chair and reached out with his trembling hand to pick up a medicinal bottle. He pulled out the stopper and poured out a medicinal pill. This was a healing medicinal pill that replenished one's blood and vitality. It was an emperor-level pill. It was extremely effective for Emperor Realm experts. The little evil king was only a Truth Realm martial cultivator. With an Emperor-level pill, his depleted blood would be quickly replenished. After taking the medicinal pill, the little evil king sat cross-legged on the stone chair and began to refine the medicinal effects of the pill. He muttered to himself, "Evil son, just you wait. I will definitely find you. I will definitely kill you. So what if you're the evil son of the great evil palace? Having received such a great opportunity, it's no longer impossible for me, the little evil king, to annihilate your great evil palace in the future." The little evil king's eyes flickered with fury and hatred. Then, he thought about the strange man who possessed him. After refining the strange man, he obtained some information. The Netherworld race. He had never heard of this race before, and he did not know where they were hiding. After 3 days, the little evil king had refined the medicinal effects of the pill, and his injuries had been mostly healed. However, his damaged cultivation foundation could not be fixed by a single emperor-level pill. He picked up another small bottle excitedly. Inside was a medicinal pill that could fix his damaged cultivation foundation. The little evil king poured out a pill, swallowed it, and continued to refine it. After eating the pill, his damaged cultivation foundation slowly started recovering, and the life force that had been lost was replenished. Senior, I, the little evil king, will never forget the kindness you have given me. No matter what your last wish is, I will fulfill it for you in my lifetime. The little evil king was filled with tears of gratitude as he looked toward the secret manual on the stone table. He was filled with anticipation. What kind of peerless cultivation technique did this senior leave behind? Oh no, he should be addressing him as master. After his damaged cultivation foundation recovered, the little evil king picked up a small bottle again. It was a pill that was used to increase his level of talent. After taking 1 pill, the little evil king felt that his talent had increased. The first pill would have the best effect. Therefore, after taking 1, the little evil king did not continue taking more. He excitedly reached out his hand and picked up the book on the stone table. Evil Warding Immortal Scripture. Immortal Scripture. A cultivation technique that surpassed legendary divine techniques. The little evil king was so excited that his hand trembled as he flipped open the secret manual. What greeted his eyes were some large words. If you want to practice this technique, use your sword to castrate yourself. Chapter 178. He closed his eyes and swung downward. Little evil king. When he saw those words, the little evil king was completely dumbfounded. His mind fell into a dazed state. This was a great opportunity. This was a cultivation technique that could only be cultivated after performing self-castration. His hands trembled even more violently. His eyes turned red as he stared fixedly at the words on the secret manual. If you want to practice this technique, use your sword to castrate yourself. There was even a line of small words below. Cut off the root of your thoughts, gather your willpower, and cultivate the ultimate technique. It wanted him to cut off the root of his thoughts. That graceful figure appeared in the little evil king's mind, that peerlessly beautiful face. How could he bear to cut off the root of his thoughts? However, in his mind, the scene of him being humiliated and tortured by the evil son, as well as the scene of the evil king dying while trying to take revenge for him, appeared again. How could he take revenge without cultivating this technique? It was a difficult choice. The little evil king's heart was filled with pain, and his facial expression was distorted. He closed his eyes, and his mind was filled with Chu Yun's voice and smile, as well as the pain of being tortured daily, and the death of his father, the evil king. In the end, he chose to take revenge. Without powerful strength, how could he survive in the southern region? How could he see Chu Yun? The little evil king took out a short sword. The short sword was very sharp and it shone with a cold gleam. He untied his belt with one hand. He raised the short sword and lowered his head to take a look. He closed his eyes in sadness. He muttered, "Darling, from now on, I can only protect you silently. Darling, don't worry, even if I am incomplete as a man, I still love you. I will still wade through the depths of hell for you. Darling, even if I cut off my roots, it still won't change my love and yearning for you." The little evil king opened his eyes once again, and lowered his head to look at his little brother one last time as he bid his final farewell. He closed his eyes and swung the short sword downwards. Swish! The little evil king curled up like a cooked shrimp and fell to the ground, letting out a blood-curdling scream that did not sound human. "Evil son, I'm going to cut you into pieces. I won't let you off. I'm going to cut you up like this too. Darling, I miss you so much." The little evil king's face was twisted as he endured the intense pain and sadness in his heart. After bandaging the wound, he sat back down on the stone chair. His eyes were burning as he looked at the evil warding immortal scripture. He could finally cultivate this peerless cultivation technique. He flipped open the secret manual. Why was it a blank page? The little evil king had a bad premonition. He continued to look downward. Finally, there were some words. However, the moment he saw those words, the little evil king's breathing quickened. His eyes were bloodshot, and tears kept falling. His face was twisted and ferocious. On the third page, it was written, "If you don't self-castrate, you can still successfully cultivate this technique." There was also a small note, "If you don't go through the secular world, how can you temper your state of mind? All of the powerful people in the ancient world have tempered themselves. If you sever your roots and sever your desires to cultivate this technique, then you are a coward. B starred, this old B asterisk starred. Such a wicked person." The little evil king threw the evil warding immortal scripture onto the ground and roared crazily. At this moment, it was not just his balls that were hurting, but his whole body, spirit and soul. He roared crazily and cursed crazily. He did not even notice that his wound had been torn open. How wicked! He was filled with tears. Just what kind of wicked person would be able to come up with such a secret manual to deceive others? The little evil king roared crazily and cursed. His eyes were red and tears were streaming down his face. At this moment, the little evil king's heart had suffered a brutal blow. The pain in his heart far exceeded the pain his physical body was feeling. Even though he had been tormented by evil son, it was not as painful as what he felt in his heart right now. After a long time, the little evil king lay on the ground, panting. His eyes were lifeless, and his lips were moving. Daring, I crippled myself. After lying on the ground for an unknown amount of time, the little evil king struggled to stand up. He picked up the evil warding immortal scripture and sat back down on the stone chair. The fact that his body was crippled had become a fact, and he could only endure the pain and accept it. His hands trembled as he flipped open the manual. When he saw the first page again, the little evil king felt even more pain, and he regretted that he had not flipped through a few more pages. Why did he castrate himself after reading the first page? It was all the evil son's fault. That's right, it was all because of him. He had been blinded by hatred, which was why he had done such a stupid thing. He had to kill the evil son. The little evil king gritted his teeth and continued to turn the pages. He turned to the fourth page. It read, "If you severed your roots, you are a coward and immensely stupid, but if you did not, your mind is whole, and you will definitely accomplish great things." Seeing this, the little evil king was flustered. Could it be that this peerless cultivation technique could not be cultivated if he castrated himself? If that was really the case, then had he castrated himself for nothing? His hands trembled even more violently. On the fifth page. Kowtow 3 times and the technique will appear. Ah! The little evil king let out a roar, his face twisted. Old B** starred, "You wicked thing, you still want me to kowtow to you." The little evil king wished that he could tear the person who had left this secret manual here into pieces. After roaring for a while, he could only helplessly accept the truth and put the secret manual on the ground, kneeling down on both knees. The moment he knelt down, his wound reopened. The pain caused his face to contort and become ferocious. Dong, dong, dong. After kowtowing 3 times, the manual began to glow and words appeared. The little evil king picked up the manual and flipped through the pages. The words on the manual seemed to come to life. They kept jumping into his mind and the many facets of the cultivation technique appeared in his mind. After an unknown period of time, the little evil king came back to his senses. He looked at the secret manual in his hand with a complicated expression. Within just a short period of time, he had comprehended the cultivation technique and knew how to cultivate it. It was as if the manual had directly instilled the comprehension of the cultivation technique into him. Such a method was beyond imagination. He should have been grateful to the owner of the secret manual, but when he thought about how he had been tricked into castrating himself, the little evil king could not bring himself to feel grateful. He hated him, but not entirely. He transferred most of his hatred onto the evil son. This cultivation technique was very powerful. Moreover, when one cultivated it to the great success stage, when one cultivated it to the divine realm, one could recover their third leg. This was where the little evil king's hopes lay. Moreover, some rare heavenly treasures also had the effect of regenerating one's third leg. Of course, such heavenly treasures could not be obtained without sufficient cultivation, nor could they be preserved and sold. Therefore, regardless of whether it was for revenge or to recover his manhood, he had to work hard in his cultivation. Fortunately, in this palace secret realm, that mysterious expert had left behind many treasures and cultivation pills. His talent had also improved. More importantly, inside this palace, he could ignore the incomplete laws of the southern region and break through to the Emperor realm. Apart from medicinal pills, the senior had also left him some artifactions, the lowest level of which was an Emperor-level artifact. As long as he cultivated successfully, it was not an extravagant hope for him to take revenge on the evil son. "I'll definitely be able to recover my manhood." A beautiful figure flashed through the little evil king's mind. His gaze became firm. He would work hard to cultivate and break through to the Emperor realm as soon as possible. Next, the little evil king began to treat his injuries. He could only cultivate after he recovered. At the same time, he took out the artifact that this senior had left for him. Embroidery needles and a dagger. Looking at the embroidery needles, the little evil king fell into a state of deep thought. Why would the senior leave a set of embroidery needles for him? He felt that the evil warding immortal scripture was slightly unorthodox. Chapter 179, Blood Rebirth, Immortal Secret Technique. The little evil king was blessed by luck and has entered the lucky mystic realm that you set up. Because of your prank, he has castrated himself with his sword. You have been rewarded with the blood rebirth technique. Chuzan was cultivating when the system's reward suddenly arrived. Quote? Quote. The little evil king. Chuzan was momentarily stunned. The little evil king had actually entered the lucky mystic realm that he had set up. Moreover, he had castrated himself with his sword. Thinking back to the prank he had set up back then, he had thought that no one would be so foolish as to castrate themselves after reading just one page. In the end, there was really a fool who had castrated himself after reading one page. Chuzan did not know how the little evil king would feel after reading the rest of the manual's contents. He reckoned that it would definitely not be good. This was retribution. The little evil king had been a cruel pervert who liked to tear apart beautiful women and feed them to the fishes. In the end, he finally got his retribution and personally castrated himself. If this was not retribution, then what was it? Chuzan mourned for the little evil king for a second. If it had been someone else who castrated himself because of his prank, Chuzan might have felt guilty. While that person might be a little silly, having castrated himself after reading the first page, it was an innocent person after all. If his prank had led to such a tragedy for an innocent person, Chuzan would more or less feel bad about it. However, the person who castrated himself was the little evil king, so there was no guilt at all. The little evil king castrated himself. This was his retribution. It was his atonement. Chuzan did not care too much about the little evil king. Since he had entered the lucky mystic realm, it was his fortuitous opportunity. Once he had succeeded in his cultivation, the little evil king would definitely seek revenge on the evil son as soon as possible. He examined the system reward. Blood rebirth technique. Allows one to be reborn from a drop of blood. Once reborn, one will have 70% of the original body's strength and retain the original body's talent and all its abilities. After reading the description of the blood rebirth technique, Chuzan was pleasantly surprised. After mastering this secret technique, it would be difficult for him to die even if he wanted to. The blood rebirth technique could be used to condense a drop of rebirth blood ahead of time. No matter where it was placed, as long as the original body died, it could be reborn from this drop of blood. After being reborn, the new body would have 70% of the original body's strength. Moreover, since it retained the original body's talent and all its abilities, it was entirely possible for them to cultivate anew and rise up again. The blood rebirth technique was not limited to a single drop of rebirth blood either, it could also condense 9 drops of rebirth blood at the same time. As long as the 9 drops of blood were not destroyed at the same time, after the original body died, it could be reborn. If all 9 drops of rebirth blood were safe, after the original body fell, it would choose the drop of blood closest to the original body to be reborn. Even if the new body was killed right after rebirth, the second and third drops would still be activated. This could be said to be an immortal secret technique. Chuzan was pleasantly surprised. The little evil king's self-sacrifice was well worth it. It had given Chuzan such a powerful secret technique. He received the reward. After mastering the blood rebirth technique, Chuzan curiously condensed a drop of rebirth blood for himself. The power of the drop of rebirth blood mainly came from the Great Tao. From this, it could be seen how high-level this secret technique was. It also meant that ordinary cultivators could not cultivate this powerful secret technique at all. Other than condensing the rebirth blood for himself, he could also condense the rebirth blood for others. Chuzan called Sushaner over. He condensed a drop of the rebirth blood for her. "Sir, what is this?" Sushaner looked at the blood that Chuzan had extracted from her body with a puzzled expression. She kept feeling that this drop of blood had some inexplicable connection with her. It seemed to contain some unknown power. "This is a drop of rebirth blood. Once your original body dies, you will be reborn from this drop of blood." Sushaner was extremely shocked. What kind of technique was this? "Sir, doesn't that mean that, as long as I have this drop of blood, I won't die?" "That's the theory. However, don't think that you are invincible just because of this and try to attempt foolhardy things." Chuzan glanced at her and said, "There's no way I would do such a thing, surely." Sushaner smiled embarrassedly. Chuzan waved his hand, and the drop of rebirth blood flew into the pocket dimension. Next, Chuzan condensed a drop of rebirth blood for Chu Pingfan, Chu Yun, and Shang Xing. With the blood rebirth technique, his disciples were almost immortal. After they went out, they could go on a rampage. At most, they would simply die and be reborn again. Chuzan pondered. The one who was in the most dangerous situation was Demon Buddha. He was spreading Buddhism in the demon zone, so it was easy for him to be hunted down. There was a need to ensure that the life of Demon Buddha was preserved. If one day, Demon Buddha was killed and rose again not long after, his enemies would probably be very afraid. On the contrary, the Buddhists would become even more fanatical. If one cultivated Buddhism, they could be reborn. Was this not attractive enough? More and more demons would be unable to resist the temptation and convert to Buddhism. Once they converted to Buddhism, under the enlightenment of the Buddhist scriptures, they would become devout Buddhists. Chuzan took out the myriad heavenly mirror and connected it to Demon Buddha, condensing 2 drops of rebirth blood for him. 1 drop was given to Demon Buddha to be placed in a secret location. Once he died, he would rely on this drop of rebirth blood to be reborn. Chuzan transferred the other drop of blood back and threw it into the pocket dimension. He was not worried about the safety of Dingyu and Wang Luo. The children of fate would not die so easily. Moreover, he had given them plenty of life-saving measures. The little evil king had entered the lucky mystic realm, which meant that he was a person with great fortune. Chuzan was looking forward to the day when he would rise up. He had left a lot of natural treasures and cultivation pills in the lucky mystic realm, which would be enough for the little evil king to cultivate for something. In addition to that, inside the lucky mystic realm, one could break through to the emperor realm. If everything went smoothly, the little evil king would participate in the opening of the Asura ancient land. He would definitely play a significant role there. Chuzan did not pay attention to how the little evil king was doing. He continued to cultivate bitterly, striving to break through to the Tao realm as soon as possible. 1 month later, your disciple, Hu Tianya, has broken through to the Emperor realm. You have been rewarded with 100 years worth of cultivation. The system's reward suddenly arrived. Chuzan was stunned. Hu Tianya had broken through to the Emperor realm. As expected, children of fate had to recklessly challenge themselves. Only in this way could they quickly increase their cultivation levels. He received the reward. 100 years of cultivation could only be considered a minor boost in cultivation for the current Chuzan. However, thanks to the 100-year cultivation boost, he had just enough to break through to the 6th level of the divine realm. Chuzan continued to cultivate. He mainly consumed medicinal pills to increase his accumulation while comprehending the stable Tao principle. Rumble. Suddenly, the pocket dimension underwent a change. Chuzan stopped cultivating and raised his head to look. The pocket dimension was expanding and undergoing an upgrade. Tao aura permeated every inch of the pocket dimension, and the Buddha Nanwu also successfully broke through to the divine realm. The soul puppets next to the origin Tao crystal underwent a transformation once again. Their strength became stronger, and their spiritual intelligence also became higher. They were currently evolving toward the direction of becoming actual living beings. Chuzan was not worried about the soul puppets gaining intelligence and leaving his control. Chu Yi and Chu Er's intelligence were all nurtured by his divine soul. Moreover, the pocket dimension and the origin Tao crystal belonged to him. No matter how much the soul puppets transformed, they would never go out of control. The reason why the pocket dimension was upgraded was because the origin Tao crystal had finally undergone another transformation. Chuzan discovered that after the origin Tao crystal transformed, it had gained a new ability. Its connection with the great Tao became even closer. However, for the time being, he was unable to use the origin Tao crystal as a medium to enter the great Tao. Chapter 180. Time Mystic Realm. One more transformation should be enough. Chuzan estimated that the next transformation the origin Tao crystal underwent would probably allow him to use it as a medium to enter the great Tao. Chuzan had personally experienced the benefits of journeying through the great Tao with his divine soul. Why were Daoyuan realm cultivators so powerful? It was precisely because they could enter the great Tao and open up their own Tao paths within the great Tao. Only Daoyuan realm cultivators could journey through the great Tao. The reason why Tao realm cultivators found it so difficult to cultivate was because they had to rely on enlightenment. If he could enter the great Tao and gain enlightenment, would his cultivation level rise 100 times faster? The origin Tao crystal was a precious treasure that could rapidly increase Chuzan's cultivation level after he broke through to the Tao realm. Chuzan's eyes burned with anticipation as he looked at the origin Tao crystal. Once he could enter the great Tao through the origin Tao crystal, his cultivation speed in the Tao realm would be absolutely unprecedented. He would set a record for being the youngest person to reach the Tao realm. The 36 levels of the Tao realm were like 36 mountains. Not everyone could climb to the ultimate peak of the Tao realm. Xu Yang and Hong Yuanchu were from the same generation, yet he was only at the 30th level of the Tao realm. He was only slightly stronger than Piao Ruian. It could be seen how difficult it was to cultivate once one reached the Tao realm. After the origin Tao crystal transformed this time, the next transformation would be more difficult. It would take a long time. Given the current number of people in the Great Tao Communication Group, who knew how long it would take for the origin Tao crystal to transform again. In order to speed up the transformation of the origin Tao crystal, it was necessary to pull more Tao realm experts into the group. If he could increase the number of Daoyuan realm experts in the group, the transformation of the origin Tao crystal would progress much faster. By increasing the number of Daoyuan realm experts, the amount of Tao aura that nurtured the origin Tao crystal would increase by leaps and bounds, far beyond what Tao realm experts could provide. However, Daoyuan realm experts were hard to find, so there was no point in being anxious about recruiting them. After the pocket dimension was upgraded, the great Dao inside it became more complete, and the Dao aura also increased by a little. After the upgrade, the time flow difference between the pocket dimension and reality was reduced, and it seemed to be developing in the direction of synchronizing with the 9 zones. Chuzan tried to manipulate the time flow difference in the pocket dimension. It could still be changed, but doing so would consume the power of the pocket dimension's laws. However, it was still feasible to speed up time in certain locations in the pocket dimension. Seeing this, Chuzan stopped interfering and let the pocket dimension develop. If he wanted to quickly increase his cultivation level, he could designate a location in the pocket dimension to speed up the time flow difference, or adjust the time flow difference between inside and outside. The Origin Dao crystal was still undergoing a transformation. It was like a nascent great Dao, gradually growing. After the transformation, a new ability was born. Chuzan took a look. Although the transformation process was not complete, the new ability had already appeared. Members of the Great Dao Communication Group could use the Origin Dao Crystal to transfer items. They could be directly transferred to the other party through their connection to the Origin Dao Crystal. All of the aura and imprints of the original owner of the item would be washed away. By tracing the sender's aura through the Origin Dao Crystal, the item would be re-imprinted with the recipient's aura. It could be said to be incomparably powerful. It was indeed worthy of being a supreme treasure that was connected to the Great Dao. It could do all this through the power of the Great Dao. Unless the item surpassed the Great Dao, it would be unable to influence or change the ability of the Origin Dao Crystal. Chuzan was an exception. The new ability of the Origin Dao Crystal was very powerful and timely. Chuzan had already begun to think about how to trick the group members' treasures. Especially the Daoyuan realm experts' treasures. However, what troubled him was that he was a super big shot and the owner of the Great Dao Communication Group. As such, did he not also have to transfer some treasures to others? Although he had many treasures on hand, those that could catch the eye of Daoyuan realm experts were few and far between. Moreover, Chuzan would not be willing to give away such treasures. Unless of course he could double his earnings. He was still lacking. Chuzan sighed. The new ability of the Origin Dao Crystal could not be released for the time being. When he had more to offer and a sufficient understanding of the Dao realm, he would be able to use his strength to deceive them. He didn't have to worry about being exposed, so it wouldn't be too late to release the new ability. The system's reward every day had already been upgraded to the Divine Realm resources. The system rewards that were triggered occasionally were all above the Dao realm. If he continued to stay at home for a period of time, the system's daily rewards would eventually be upgraded to the Dao realm. At that time, he would have much more of a basis to trade with others. Chuzan was full of anticipation. It had been a while since he had used the myriad heavenly mirror to connect to the various domains. He should try his luck and see if he could encounter any more children of fate. Then, he would take them in. This would increase the chances of triggering the system's rewards. The lucky mystic realms in the courtyard had yet to be set up either. It had already been so long, but they had yet to attract any new children of fate. Perhaps the distance was too far, and the time it took to attract the children of fate was even longer. Of the children of fate in the northern zone, other than the ones in the central and eastern regions, the rest could be said to have entered Chuzan's employ. Although Xiao Liang had not acknowledged him as his master, he still had some connections with Chuzan. Chuzan decided that if he met Xiao Liang again, he would make him acknowledge him as his master no matter what. Among the children of fate, Xiao Liang had always been running around outside, so the probability of him triggering the system reward was even higher than the rest. The myriad heavenly mirror image projection appeared. It connected to a strange and craggy valley. Chuzan was extremely surprised. There seemed to be a layer covering the valley, concealing some unknown power. After carefully comprehending it, he discovered that it was a power related to time. In an instant, Chuzan thought of the legendary time mystic realm. There was once a person with great luck who entered a time mystic realm by mistake and cultivated for 100 years, while only a year had passed in the outside world. This valley was a time mystic realm. It seemed that the power of the mystic realm had been exhausted and was now shattering. The person inside was about to come out. Chuzan watched expectantly. Those who could enter the time mystic realm were all people with great luck. It was almost certain that this person was a child of fate. There were usually only 3 situations where a time mystic realm would be formed. First, under certain special circumstances, the laws of the Great Tao would condense and form a time mystic realm. This kind of mystic realm was of a very high level and was an opportunity given by the Great Tao. Entering this kind of mystic realm was akin to receiving the favor of the Great Tao. As long as one did not die, the divine realm was not the end of the road, and the Tao realm was within reach. The second type was a man-made mystic realm. Those who could set up a time mystic realm were all Tao realm experts. However, they could only set up a time mystic realm using their own cultivation and a certain amount of lifespan. These experts usually set up such a realm to find a successor or recuperate from heavy injuries. They had to pay a certain price to use the realm to avoid powerful enemies. The third situation was where this mystic realm was formed by some natural treasures. For example, natural treasures related to time would form such time mystic realms. Chu Zan looked at this strange valley and tried to figure out how this time mystic realm was formed. If it was man-made, the person who entered would definitely be affected by karma with the expert who had set up the time mystic realm. Regardless of whether the person who set up the time mystic realm was alive or dead, this thread of karma persisted. Chu Zan needed to consider whether he should accept the person who entered this time mystic realm as his disciple. After careful observation, Chu Zan roughly determined that there was an 80% chance that this time mystic realm was formed by some kind of natural treasure. Someone who could enter this mystic realm was definitely a person with great luck and fate.